Hey, what's going on? This is another success story mashup. So we're gonna go 4 hours on this one. We talked to Ron Stefanski. He works on ad-based sites primarily. He's making about I can't remember, it's like 16 or 20K a month, something like that. Then we talked to Nick, who's a musician. He's making about $1,500 per month. And the cool thing is this is like from way back in the archive. So he's a touring musician and he's making money on the side, which is pretty nice for him. Then we have two interviews with Duke. First, when he hit about $1,000 per month, and then when he hit about $3,000 per month. So that's pretty fun. And then we again go back in the archive to talk to Christy, who this is her first interview. So she's making about $100 per month at the time of the interview. However, right now, she's been making about $1,000 a month for the last few months. So buckle in, get a coffee or two, beer, whatever beverage you can have right now. Maybe you want to listen to this at 2x speed. I'm not sure. All right. Welcome to this episode. I'm sitting here with my good friend, Ron. Ron, how you doing today?
Howdy, everyone. I am really good, Doug. How are you?
Awesome. Doing really well. Funny enough, it was like 78 degrees. I talk about the weather all the time, apparently. It was like 78 degrees on like Sunday, and then it snowed 3 inches yesterday, Monday.
We had the same thing, actually, in Illinois. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, we've had this crazy cold front. It's terrible outside right now. It's like 45 degrees. That's why it's so dark in here.
Yeah.
So
crazy. Well, anyway, moving on from the weather, who knows when people are going to watch this, but Ron is from the 1 Hour Professor. And Ron, for people that don't know who you are, can you just give like a little intro?
Sure. So I have been in this whole thing, this internet marketing area. It's probably been, I don't even know how many years it's been, Doug. I think about 6 years now. About 6 years or so. Background from that, though, I had basically in corporate America, I went to a digital marketing manager role. Worked at a startup. I mean, I was pretty corporate marketing, digital marketing specifically. I have a degree, my MBA in marketing as well. So I was kind of like a corporate marketer, and I had worked through that, and then I ended up going as an entrepreneur. And when I did that, it was a tough few years there. Struggled through quite a bit, but ended up kind of finding my area in authority websites. I do some affiliate stuff, but kind of finding my niche there. And now I just own a portfolio of websites, and I've just been growing my business, year over year as much as I can.
Awesome. And for the people who maybe you're new to the channel or something like that, or new to the podcast, this is going to be broadcast in multiple areas. But I did a short feature on Ron because Ron, you're making roughly like 15 to 16 plus $1,000 per month, and that's been consistent. And you have been documenting your journey since roughly the end of 2014. So you have like multiple years of income reports where you critically look at, how your business was doing.
Yeah.
And that's why we're talking here. It really, like, I haven't seen like a long-term journey like that where someone has done such a good job documenting it. So
yeah, and
kudos
Pat
for
Flynn, and Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income. He was like a big inspiration for that, of course, like most people. And I did it. And then now it's actually kind of weird. And I know we've talked about this on other calls and stuff, but it's kind of weird because, I'm getting to the point where I'm making that income and it's almost awkward to talk about. But in the beginning, it wasn't like that. It was easy to report, hey, I'm making negative $200 a month. But then when it's like making $16,000 a month, it feels like you're gloating, which is uncomfortable. But it's like, I'm not gloating. I've been doing this forever. So yeah, I've told you this before. I've really documented it all at this point. I do the income reports. Other people see them, when they're on the email list, they'll see them, that sort of thing. But it actually has really helped me keep myself accountable, set goals every month, understand where my business is. Nothing ever falls off my radar because of those. So that's why I've continued to do them. But I've done them every single month with things that I've learned and insights just to help people along the way. So
cool. And for people that are interested, I'll put a link in the description so you can check out some of the income reports and stuff like that. Now, before we go on to some of the tactics and stuff like that, I mean, we're going to go deep. We actually have a bunch of questions from people in the YouTube audience that submitted questions. So thanks everyone for that. But number one, you and I talk pretty often, every couple of weeks, but I forgot that you got an MBA. I forgot you had one, that's cool. And I get to ask you a bunch of questions that I don't know. Because normally we're just, shooting the shit a little bit here.
Yeah, usually about the business stuff. So yeah, you'll probably learn a few things. Yeah, I got my MBA, and then I was going for my doctorate. My doctorate was going to be in higher education because I was just going to be a college professor full time. But then I kind of was like, I think it was about a year and a half. It was a 3-year program. I got a year and a half into it. And then we had to like give advice to a local business and stuff. I actually felt really uncomfortable with that because I wasn't fully invested in the I was just getting it so I could be a college professor. I wasn't fully invested, and I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur anyway. So I actually stopped getting my doctorate, and I was like, I'm just going to stop now and give this entrepreneur thing a full push. So there you go. Something you didn't know probably.
Cool. Yeah. I had no idea. So did you go straight from undergrad to grad school? And then okay.
I went to give you a little background, I went to community college because I couldn't get into any colleges. So I wasn't like a great student. I wasn't. I wasn't terrible. I had in high school, I think a 2.8. Went to college. First, I went to community college to get my grade point up, got it up, went to Western Michigan, go Broncos, for 3 semesters. Got kicked out because I like lecture style learning, not for me. So if anyone's out there like, oh, I'm not smart, you are. There's just certain things that you learn in certain ways. I wasn't good with that. So got kicked out, ended up going to school online 100% to finish up my bachelor's. And then I was like, well, I got my bachelor's, but everyone has that. So now let me go and try to get my master's. And then I went to Benedictine University in Illinois. That was like a hybrid program, online, offline. So I did that. And then I was getting my doctorate, and that was also a hybrid program as well. So yeah, but I did go from my bachelor's straight to my master's. I think it was probably like 3 or 4 months off there.
Okay.
And then my doctorate, I got my master's. I was like, that's it. But then I was like, a few years later, I was like, well, maybe I should just get my doctorate because I was liking the college professor thing. So I was like, maybe I should do that. And then, like I said, I stopped because I wanted to do this stuff. And luckily I did stop. It worked out. So
right. And then you mentioned you were like, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. It's a struggle. What were some of your early ventures?
So my thing was I still don't know how to code. And I mean, you give me some HTML, I can kind of look at it, kind of understand what's going on if I'm looking at the page next to it, but I never understood how to code. I still don't. I always focused, one thing it was big with me is I always focused on websites, and I did that for one simple reason, the low startup cost. There was such a low startup cost, which is a huge benefit. If anyone's out there and they're like, oh, I don't want to invest money, or they're cheap like I was, admittedly, I had some money to invest, but I was just too scared to do it. When I was there, it was like I didn't want to invest it, so I just would work on it myself, and I'd put all the hours in. But you can see those results, and websites have such a low startup cost. That was a huge deal to me because it's like, who has 10, 20, 30, 50,000, 100,000 to franchise stuff? Some people do. I didn't. So that was my biggest thing. But my early ventures, man, because it's all website based, right? But I created so many different crappy websites. like this was not success. Like there's so many different things. I remember there was one for Dragon Naturally Speaking software. I made a website all around that because the commission, I think, was like, if you get a commission from an affiliate thing, it was like, I think it was like $60 or $80. It was pretty high. So I was like, I could do that. And I spent all this time and money in YouTube and ads and everything. That failed. The amount of failures, Doug, they're insurmountable. I had one, I still remember, it was picturesofbabiesinthewomb.com. That was a website I made. Pictures of babies in the womb was a high search volume, low competition. I was like, I could do this. Dumbest thing I ever did in my life. Like I did it for I think it was like a week, and I was like, this is stupid. So yeah, there's no shortage of failures. We could spend the whole hour talking about failures if you wanted, but yeah, there's been a lot of those.
Maybe we could do that sometime because I have a handful also.
It would be hard for me to even think of how many, that's really, I would have to look at the domains that I bought over time and be like, that was dumb. Oh yeah, I forgot. There's so many that I've had that I'm like, because as an entrepreneur, shiny object syndrome, right? And especially when you're in the beginning, because you're just trying to make anything work. So you're trying this, that, you don't know what's going to work. So I was totally everywhere, all over the place trying to make stuff work. So
that's funny. I gotta ask, how are you going to get the pictures?
So there's your problem. So actually it was because I had read somebody saying basically, and this is totally not okay to do, but I was pretty young and new to it. They're like, if you just get the pictures and put them up on your website, you can put ads and make money. I was just taking I was taking the pictures illegally, essentially, just going to Google, like, ooh, like a baby in the womb at 2 months. I'm going to get that. And then like I started researching. I was like, well, this isn't okay. Like this is actually, I can get in a lot of trouble with copyrights for this. So at the time I didn't know. That's really what it came down to. I was just like naive, thought it was a good idea. I worked on it for like a week and a half. And I was like, no, I just basically, once I found out the copyright stuff, I was like, this is not worth the risk of making $20 a month, maybe. So.
And for any of the listeners or viewers out there, maybe go check Instagram, because I bet maybe you're just ahead of your time, because I bet there's a couple Instagram handles out there of people just posting pictures of babies in the womb or something.
You would be surprised. Yeah, I'm sure that there's someone out there who took my brilliant idea, Yeah, but I don't know. That's just one of the bad examples. There was a lot. I tried to be straight with it, but like that's the thing. I did Udemy. I did that. My 1 Hour Professor website. Originally, I was focused on trying to create courses. I tried to do and I did some consulting. So I did that. Like I did anything and everything I could possibly do to try to like make it self-sustaining. That was like the whole thing. So make my whole employment self-sustaining. I mean,
right. Now, I want to jump into some of the specifics on like sort of your approach to your portfolio and the kind of sites that you work on. There's a lot of questions that came in that are about like content and link building and your keyword research and stuff like that. So we're going to kind of dive into that, some of the tactical stuff. We're going to meander around. That's kind of how my brain works. So can you tell me just sort of the kind of websites that you have sort of in general?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, so I've noticed a lot of people going into the model of like the Amazon affiliate thing, which is good. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. But to me, that it scares the crap out of me. I have a website that is in that, and it's in like the pet niche. We'll just call it that. So yeah, I have like the pet niche, the employment niche. I'm trying to think of any other niches. I can't really give away one of the, I guess it would be like a public service niche. I can't really give that away because it would be too specific. But in general, like the websites that I build, I've done a Amazon affiliate, but that scares me because Amazon, they just did it this last week. I don't know if you heard, but like fashion got lowered by X percentage. Like they keep dropping their commissions. And it just scares me. It really scares me because I feel like Amazon is so powerful. I will say for anyone that's out there has an Amazon site that's doing pretty well, I think where the real money is there is creating physical products or digital products if you can somehow monetize it and do that. And selling those on your website is a much more safer business model. But for me, most of my websites, I've kind of gone away from that whole Amazon affiliate model because it scares me. And I focus mostly on like informational, educational content type of websites, true authorities, like finding a niche of individuals or, around a passion or around a problem. Giving them all the information that they need. And then usually monetization, I get, some Amazon affiliate monetization, some other affiliate monetization. And then mostly it's actually Google AdSense. I make quite a bit with Google AdSense, but yeah, there's some other affiliate partners there, but that's kind of the businesses that I focus on are informational, educational around a particular niche or topic to help people.
Got it. And going back to, one of our influences, Pat Flynn of Smart Passive Income, basically he had, this site back in the day, Security Guard Training
HQ. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Like a public case study. I think it's still around. I think it's remained, relevant, but
yep.
That's a great example for people to have a look at. Would you agree, Ron?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how, well, even here's the thing, if you search Security Guard Training now, you're not just going to see his, but you're going to see all the people that copied him, which I never think people should copy each other because, I mean, there's always room for a niche, but like be original. But a lot of people copied him. So you'll see, if not his, then you're going to see other ones that are probably way better than his because he doesn't really work on that much anymore, I don't think. But yeah, it's still relevant. Yeah, it's definitely still relevant.
Cool. And I think, yeah, it's important to point out like there's many different business models like you're saying. So I focus on Amazon typically. I also have info products, educational kind of stuff, and you focus on like ads. And there's plenty of room for many different business models and they could all work just fine. And they have pros and cons. So
yeah, and I will say too, if you really want to do well with an authority website or like any website, and Doug, I'm sure you'd agree, you maybe start with one monetization model, like let's just say Amazon, and then you do stacking, right? So then you stack on, okay, we got Amazon. Well, maybe we should throw them some AdSense on certain pages where it makes sense. Let's create a digital product. And then you get a website that goes from making, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 a month to 3, 4, 5. And that's how you focus on what you have and squeeze every drop of juice out of that lemon, right? Like get everything you can. And then when you're out of monetization ideas, that's the point where you say, maybe I should start something new. I think that's an important takeaway for anybody, because that's a mistake I made a bunch of times. So I still make that mistake, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you started, let's focus on just one site, maybe the major site as far as revenue, just to give a good example so we could focus on, one site here. Like when you started it, can you tell us about like how many keywords you had to start off with? Like what did you launch with, your general plan of like link building, or did you even know all that stuff yet?
To be honest, I kind of knew it because of my corporate life, I guess you could say, because of digital marketing. But I will say most of what I learned, I don't feel like was from the job, or it definitely wasn't from school. I remember I had one class on digital marketing that actually still makes me mad. So it definitely wasn't from that. I mostly learned what I did through podcasts, honestly. I learned a ton through podcasts, and I usually prefer podcasts because working out or on a drive, commute, you can still listen. But yeah, my main website, just to be clear, the reason, if anybody doesn't know, I don't disclose this anymore because I did at one point and I got some copycats coming in, and I don't like that. So that's why I don't disclose the website. But my main website, that particular one, when I started it, it was actually just based on, and I'm not kidding when I say this, there was a need, my father had gotten remarried, and there was a need in the family for someone to be able to get a job, and they had certain things going on out externally that were influencing that. So I basically went out and I said, okay, well, what other websites are out there to help with this type of situation? That individual was having a really hard time. I couldn't find a really good resource. There was a few others out there, which there's a lesson in that. If it's already been done, most of the things you come up with will be done at some point already, but that doesn't mean they can't be better. So at that point in time, I basically looked and I saw what was out there. I was like, I really think I can make something better. And I legitimately at that time was building it to help that individual. And I was thinking maybe one day I'll make $500 a month, maybe, I have no idea. And here I am now. I don't even know what that website probably pulls in 10 to 12,000 a month or something like that. So, but yeah, the keywords, I only knew what my competitors were doing, and I only knew to do what they were doing, but do it a little bit better. So it was I didn't really have a specific set of keywords. I kind of did something which I'm sure we'll talk about. I work in systems. That's the way that I am. I probably should have been a project manager, to be honest with you. But that's kind of how my brain works, is how can we do something, create an outline for it or a template for it, and do that, and then get it to a certain quality standard, and then do that over and over and over and over and over. So I did that with the keywords. It was more covering information for all 50 states of the United States with a certain content template to fully cover that information, move on. And then it was okay, we're done with that part of it. Let's go to this other area where we can do 50 more pages on specific information for all 50 states, do that, and then let's move to this, so it was kind of the systematic way of doing it. But I started with one, and I built that out. I built it better than what they were doing. I didn't really have a list of keywords, so to speak, nowadays I usually do. In that particular instance, though, I didn't, because I didn't really, I knew kind of here's my targets, but I didn't really have it was really to help someone. Now I try to focus my stuff on really genuinely helping people, and usually good things happen from there. So,
right. And again, for people that are curious about an example, that Security Guard Training HQ is, it's sort of a template that you could follow that's really similar, where it's there's regulations for 50 different states for security guards.
That's a perfect example, Doug. That's a perfect, at security guard, in order to become a security guard in all 50 states, you probably have certain laws or whatever you have to follow. So that's what I would do, is I would say, okay, the security guard training in Arizona, let's focus on that. Security guard training in Alaska, let's focus, and do it that way. So that's how I started. And then that started to pick up steam, and then I did it more and more and more in different areas.
Yep. Perfect. And for like people that are familiar with the channel, usually focusing on like product related keywords, buyers keywords, these are not. These are generally like
No.
informational. So it's
Yep.
like purely informational. There's no products related to it.
Nope.
No really like, yeah. So there's no products, there's no buyers keywords. It's informational and it's ad revenue. So just want to point that out. Now, how much content is on the site now?
In terms of the big site that I have,
Yeah.
I think it's at like 1,800 pages or something like that total. So to be clear, so I focused on that we'll call it database type of content, just for, so people can understand, like 50 states database type thing. We'll call it that. So I did focus on that a lot, but I also do blogging. And that's where I do the keyword research. And I say, can these individuals get hired by this company, or can these individuals get training by, and I think of that too. So like, I'll do the keyword research. I'll find specific questions that are really important to that niche, that area. And then I will have blog posts answering those questions. So I also do blogging, but yeah, like total, like 1,800, I think, right around there. Yeah.
That's bananas, man. That's
It's crazy. But again, it's been I've been doing it for 5 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, and when I outsource a ton, I'm sure we'll talk about that. I outsource a ton of my work. So like when I outsource, I mean, I really, really, really outsource. I'm not scared to spend thousands of dollars every month. Not that you have to do that in the beginning, but once you start making the money, I'm a huge, huge proponent of rolling back into the business to grow it. And that's how I've really grown larger, is by always rolling back profits or revenue into the business. So.
Yep, totally. And just as a reference point, do you happen to remember how many posts or pieces of content that you like launched that site with?
At the time, I would say, I'm trying to think, I would think that it was probably around I'd say maybe about 150 total pages. But it was mostly focused on, again, that database type of, let's just use the security guard training as an example. It was mostly built around that. So let's just say about 150 pages is where I launched it. And then I started to see traffic, and I wasn't too concerned with monetization at the time, because that's always something you can figure. There's always a way to make money. There's always a way to make money. So like, yeah, I think around 150 is where I really did it. Nowadays, if you would ask me now what I would do, now that I know a lot more and I've been around for a while, I would probably say usually no less than like 25 pages or 25 posts is when I'd really launch something. But it depends on your strategy. Like if you're doing 25 informational pieces of content and you launch, you might start to get some traffic after about 6 months is when I think that the Google sandbox, you get out of it, so to speak. So you might take that, but then it's like, okay, now you have informational content for 25 articles. You don't have a way to make money. So it's like, like now you need to start doing affiliate stuff, so it depends on your strategy. There's a lot, but yeah, I would say like you want to have 25 well-written posts. Like don't just throw out 500 words of garbage. That's not going to do it for you. So
about how long are the posts that you have generally?
When they're questions, I would say mostly, I usually, the rule of thumb is like when I send my writers, 750 to 1,000 words is typically on the low end. On the high end, I might go up to like 2,000, 2,250, like maybe 2,500. But I know some people are like, oh, publish the longer content and this, that, and the other. I don't believe that this is just a personal belief. I don't think that that's going to be sustainable. I think eventually Google is going to be like, hey, you have these 10,000, 20,000, word of things. Yeah, right now you might get some long tail, but I don't think that works because it's so hard to navigate. And like, I don't know. I mean, that's my thought. I know the argument of like, well, there's longer time on page and all this and that, but I don't personally believe in that. I would rather create a URL and a title tag and a page that specifically answers one query about one thing. If there's things that are really, really similar, then yes, tie them into that and maybe make a different like heading. But in general, yeah, around 750 to 1,000 is where I stay. So
right. And just to, I tend to agree with you on just in general. But I mean, let's say you or I have a problem. We type it into our phone or maybe use some kind of voice search. I don't want to read like 10,000 fucking words on like I just want like the one sentence answer. So sometimes if you could say it in a few paragraphs, that's better. And sometimes people are in a hurry.
Yeah, and I think
So,
one caveat to that too is that like some people think, well, because Google has their knowledge graph. So now it's like you search and you get an instant answer, and they're like, well, they don't need to click through to your website. Yes, they do, because even though there's that knowledge graph there, and even though there's that one or two sentences that answer your question, they still want to know how you arrived at that question. Like as human beings, we're not just going to be like, oh, read it on the internet and it's true. Oh, well, some people do that, but most people are like, okay, I understand that you're saying that, let me dive a little deeper to understand why that is and everything. So I think that's important to understand.
right, right, right. And quick caveat, Ryan and I both know long form content is good, but sometimes short form content is the right length. So just to be clear, before people get upset and tell me that 15 to 1800 words
Yeah.
is the ideal length for ranking, sure, across a huge data set.
Yeah. And you got to, I mean, and you also have to understand, my writers are answering a question, right? If you're doing a roundup review of 5 or 10 products, even, you might not even have enough at 1800 words. You know what I mean? Like it depends on what the content is and what the intent of the user is. That's the real key here. So like the way that my business works and my focus, my intent is going to be answering that one question or questions really closely related to it. And that's it. And then maybe I link to a few other things to get them, maybe on my email list or whatever else. But if you're on like a Amazon website, like that sort of thing, yeah, if you're doing a full product review, which like I said, I have a website like that. If I was doing that, then yeah, you want the longer content. So it really depends on the content and what the user's intent is. I think that's the key to that whole discussion. So
right on, right on. So just quickly, sounds like you have some writers that help you out. Can you tell us a little bit about the writing team, how you approach that, and just in general what you're paying?
Yeah. So my writers, for the most part, I was super, super cheap when I started. And I actually, I hear people say like, oh, I usually will pay. I usually do it by word. And the reason why I do that when I pay my writers, I say, okay, by word. Actually, I'm sorry. I say by 100 words because it's just easier math. But I usually say that because I want my writers to understand that I want them to write what they need to write. I don't want to say, write an article between 500 to 750 words and I'll pay you X amount of dollars. I don't like doing that at a fixed cost because as a writer, they have no incentive to go past 500 and 501 words. They have no incentive. It's like, why would I spend more time doing this for my client when I have this other client who, they have no incentive. So I basically say, I will just pay you per 100 words. And usually that comes out to like, when I started, at first, I had a writer that was like 50 cents per 100 words. Oh, and one other thing, I always get English-based people, no matter what, 100%. I never, ever get anyone from outside of the US because I've just found that, well, I guess you could make the argument like UK and all that would be fine, definitely. But their currency is higher than ours. So that's why I don't usually go with them. But like you want someone who is an English speaker, full-fledged native, and that's just what they do. I've just found when I've tried to do it with other countries that I've always had too many little issues, like little intricate things. Plus, they don't always understand like the humor here and the current events. It's just they're not in the culture. They're not immersed in the culture, so they don't fully get it. Right. But I always hire them. But yeah, I like when I pay them. I usually will do it per 100 words. I started at like 50 cents, which was super, super cheap, and the lady was working way too cheap. And then I was up to like $1. And that was, believe it or not, like some people will tell you like, oh, you have to pay at least like $2, $3, $4 per 100 words. And I think that you probably do get some better content for that. Like for the most part, there is definitely that, but there's a point of diminishing return there. And the reality is with a lot of content, specifically if you choose the right niche and it's not super competitive, you might be the only one writing it, or like one of the few writing it. So good enough or a little bit better than your competitor is better than anything else out there. Not easy to find those niches, but I think I kind of stumbled into one of those with my own affiliate site. So it's like when you're dealing with that, you don't need to pay super, super high. And especially if you're doing informational content like I do, you're not going to see a huge return on your content anyway. I mean, it's going to be like most of my content doesn't make a ton of money. The thing is, I just have a ton of content that makes a little bit of money, all those different pages. So like that's the difference between my business model. But if you're doing like an Amazon one, like that type of website, I could see paying more. Now I typically pay, and I usually go for people who have like a journalism type of degree. I look for teachers are really big. And now I'm okay usually around $2 per 100 words, which is like 2 cents a word. That's typically what I'm willing to pay now, which I've found that the content is good enough. So I have that. And then I also, I'm trying to think of how many writers I have right now. I think it's 3 different writers right now, is what I have. And then I have a editor that actually manages all the content of all my websites, and she just gives it that final look through. And then if I ever have an issue, this is why I like that, because they don't report to that editor, but at the same time, she's kind of the catch-all. So if I see something wrong with my articles, I don't have to go to the writer. I have to go to the editor and say, hey, why did you miss this? And then they catch that flack, and then it spreads to all my writers and all my content, so they know, don't do that again. And then they're making sure that they keep the writers in check. And I tell them, if you have to talk to the writer, please talk to the writer. Tell them this. Like, that's okay. Like, I'm leaning on you. And if this content isn't good, I'm leaning on you. So this is on you, and this is going to be your problem if it's not good. So that whole hierarchy has worked for me. But when I first started, to go back to people who are probably earlier, I just hired a writer. They would submit content to me. I would review it. I would edit it. And I still teach at colleges and stuff. So like, I'm good at that whole part of editing and all that, because it's just like part of my profession. But I would edit it myself and then post it myself, but as I grew, I had someone post, and then I got an editor. Like, that took time for me. That was probably one of the most difficult things for me to let go of, is like putting an editor in place. I barely even see some of the content now. I mean it, like it just goes up there, and then my virtual assistant's like, hey, it's up. And then I'm looking at it, and I'm looking, if I see anything wrong, I'm like, hey, wait a minute. And then I'll go back. But I wasn't like that before, So.
Well, how did you, I get this question often. So how did you like let go of that control?
I know that I'm not great at everything. I think I'm pretty decent / good at a lot of things, but I'm not great at everything. And it just comes down to the fact that, like, I wasn't a journalism major, like I'm a good writer. I had to be. I mean, I almost did like a whole thesis and my doctorate program and all that. I'm a good writer, but I understand that there's people who are better at it than me. I understand that there's people who are way more passionate about it, and writing and creating content in general takes forever. It's a very long, it just takes time. I didn't like spending my time doing that. It's not that I couldn't do it, but it was like, okay, I could spend all my time doing this, or I can buy back some of my time and have someone else do it. And then I can oversee the whole direction of the website and really where we're going. That was like a really, really big thing to me. And like, one of the things I always say to people who are like hesitant to outsource, at the end of days, when you are on your deathbed, right? Hypothetically, you're sitting there. Do you think that you're going to be like, man, I wish I would have edited more articles, like that kind of thing? Or like, I mean, that's dramatic, but the reality is every hour that you buy back of your own time by investing in outsourcing is another hour you get to actually live and enjoy and have for yourself, and like, it may sound cheesy or whatever, but that's how I think. Like, if it comes down to time, anything that takes me a lot of time, outsource as quick as I can, because I know that time is the one thing none of us can ever get back. You can never do it. So
yeah. Yeah, it's, I mean, I was going to say like that once I started letting go, like things are, the editor is going to do good enough.
Yep.
Like if you really want to scale, and I mean, there's only so many hours that each of us has. So you have to you have to leverage it somewhere. And like you said, once you hit a point that you could reinvest, you could buy back some of that time and do more visionary kind of stuff where you're like doing things to grow instead of just like, and
you're implementing strategies. You're no longer in the weeds. You're not working on your in your business. You're working on your business. Like you're above. You're overseeing it. You have people doing certain things. You're making sure those go well, but you're also able to do forward thinking. You're thinking about what's the next content. What affiliates, what direction do I want to go? That was a big thing. And I'll say, like, in the beginning too, just to bring it back to my past a little bit. When I started this, I had a full-time job personally. It was as a marketing manager, and I started it as a passion project with a full-time job. I think that anybody who does it, unless they have a ton of money saved up, I think if they just like leave their job and just go all for it, I personally found that crazy because I like taking calculated risks, and for me, I couldn't invest a ton of money into it in the beginning, but I was short on time. But what I could do is I could manage a writer who could create the content, then I could edit it, then I could put it up, and I had the money still coming in to where I could afford to do all that, and that was a tough transition to get away from because I had like the golden parachute, making like over 100K, like that whole thing. Everything was really, really great. But now I make more than I ever could have made, and I work from home, and I get to decide everything I want to do, which is way. I'd do this even if I was making less. Well, I did do it when I was making less. I took a huge risk. So yeah.
Totally. And you know what? I forgot to ask this. How long? I guess when did you quit your full-time job as the digital marketer?
So I was a digital marketer. I think probably from when I really, really focused on this website. I think it took about 7 or 8 months until my first website really, really took off. And by really took off, like, don't get like confused by that. Like when I say really took off, I'm talking it made like $300 to $400 a month. Like that was really taking off to me. And the reason for that was simple. It had momentum. That was my biggest thing. And I was like dying to leave my corporate job. I was dying. I like my workers. Or my coworkers, my boss wasn't terrible. Like at times I get annoyed, but who doesn't at their boss? But they weren't terrible. It was just I didn't like the commute killed me, like all these different things. So for me, yeah, it was like I don't know. I think it was like 7 or 8 months or so, and my website started to show momentum, started to make a little bit of money, and I was like, I can do this. And then I just like I have a condo in the city. I rented that out. I went to like a crappy apartment in the suburbs. Like I downsized big time. I was paying for parking, and this is in Chicago, which is, it's not like the most expensive place, but it's pretty expensive. So yeah. I had all that stuff. I moved to the suburbs. I like no more cable. Like I cut all ties with everything. And I had, I don't know what, I think I had like 10 or 15,000 saved up total. Okay. And I was just like, I'm going for it. Like, I'm going to do this and I'm going for it. So,
okay. Yeah. I was like, dude, if you had a 6-figure job and then you're making $300 or $400 a month, like that's bananas. But you had other stuff. You downsized. You did some other things. All right.
Yeah. And I will say too, I had, because I've been teaching for all this time, right? So like I still, and I'm very blessed, I still have some of my teaching gigs just as an adjunct professor, like a part-time, take on courses when you can. I still have some of that. So like at the time I had it, and that was, I did that and a little bit of consulting to survive. It was like in the red every month, or like even every month, but I was just working as hard as I possibly could on these websites. So, or on the website, I should say at the time. So.
Right. Now, link building. So a ton of questions on link building. Well, actually, let me just ask you this, because some people say link building is a total waste of time. They don't even do it. They maybe wait for some natural links. What do you think about links?
I think that's bananas. No, to say that, to say link building doesn't matter at all, in my personal opinion and experience, this isn't just opinion. This isn't, this is something that I've lived. Link building will get you there faster, I guess is what you could say. Like, yes, you can create a ton of content. And if you use the KGR, the keyword golden ratio, you will get rankings, you will get up there. And yes, you will. But even though you're getting served for those relevant results, and even though you may be getting, views on your website, what are the chances of that person's a webmaster? What are the person that webmaster is going to link to you? Not very high. So like some people say, oh, I don't do link building. I will say, and Doug, you know a lot about the history, I think I've overdone link building at the past at times, a little too hard. And we could talk about that later or whatever, but for the most part, when it comes to link building, I personally feel like it's an absolute necessity. You don't have to go crazy on it, but like after like 6 months, you're going to find if you are just creating content, you're going to be writing to nothing, and you're not going to see much. Like I have a website right now that I'm working on. We have, I'm trying to think, I think it's about 80 articles, 90 articles right now. I am getting maybe one visit a day, maybe. And it's been about 3 months. But I know that that's okay, because I'm going to do link building and I'm going to kind of build it up. So I think link building is a requirement personally. I think that you have to at least do some link building in order to be really successful. That's how I feel.
Cool. And I think because we have so many questions on that, we may hold off on some of the link building details, because I think we could actually someone just said, just talk about link building all day in one of the comments. That was Josh. But basically I tend to agree with you. You can get away with not building links, but if you build links, it's just like putting gas on the fire,
It is. It really is.
or some other highly flammable thing that's like useful. Like I think people like the idea because they don't know how to do it, or it seems scary, or they want to do less
terrible.
work. Right.
It's like sales, because it's like link building there. If you get a 1 to 3% conversion, so that means every 100 targets, you get 1 to 3 of them to link back to you. That's pretty average decent. I mean, that's not completely terrible. Like, and that number, it's like, can you sit there and deal with all that rejection over and over and over? Like, really good people are getting 7 to 10%, but like, that's not, 1 out of every 10 isn't very encouraging, it's tough. So like, yeah, I think a lot of people don't want to do it because it's just full of rejection. It's not fun. I love it. I don't know why, and I'm glad I love it. I don't even know why it makes me tick, but I love it because I think it's because I know all my competitors aren't doing it. They're not focused on it, and they don't really focus on it enough. They don't think it's important enough. And I can tell you definitively, 1000%, it is extremely important, because I have websites where I don't do it and nothing's happening, and then I start doing it, and then guess what? All my rankings start climbing. It always happens, always. And that goes for Amazon websites or Amazon affiliate websites. That goes for informational websites, any type of website. It always is going to help because it just gives you more authority. That's all it does. So
yes. And we could, like I said, we could go on and on and on and on. But just for the main site that we've been talking about, do you have an idea like how many referring domains are pointing to it, just to give people an idea the craziness that is going inside?
I'm gonna have to look on Ahrefs actually for that one.
That's all right.
I've got it up here right now. So at this point, I have 419 referring domains to that one. So that's a total. But I will say, and I don't know anyone else who's like maybe a little bit more advanced, it's like watching this, I've been getting more spam links lately. So like of those, maybe 350 are like valid. I don't know why. It seems like there's like been an influx across all my websites that more people have been doing that. So like probably valid, like 350, 360 domains total. But that website, I did a decent amount of link building in the beginning. I haven't really done much link building other than that, because in terms of the internet, I'm basically the number one result for that particular like term and that particular niche. I don't really need to keep doing the link building because a lot of my content is ranking. So now I am getting those links organically, which is like the coolest feeling in the world, because you're just like, oh my gosh, I just got a link. Like I get links from like a government website. All of a sudden it's like, well, hello there, thank you. Like, that's awesome. So nowadays I don't really do much for that one, but it's already reached that top level. When you're at a website in the beginning and you're not even close to that top level, you absolutely have to do link building, in my personal opinion. So.
Do you know how many, I don't know if you'll remember this, but do you know how many referring domains or links you got before you hit that sort of critical mass where like now you are the authority and people will link to your site because you have the best information? So
I had a very strange growth trajectory with this particular website. To backtrack just a little bit, when I created this website, I started to get a little bit of organic traffic without doing any link building. So it does work. In the beginning, I wasn't doing any. What ended up happening was this particular resource, this particular website, it actually went very, very, very viral on Facebook. And it's, to be clear, it's a resource. This is an informational resource. This wasn't like, 9 ways to do this. Number 6 will surprise you. It wasn't those types of posts. It was like a database type of resource helping people with some particular information. It went viral on Facebook like crazy. And what ended up happening was, this like shut down my server a few times. Like it was like a big deal. Like I was getting 200-300 people on at every second of the website, which was crazy. But the whole thing was that basically went up and then it went down because that's what viral stuff does. And then after that is when I thought about link building, because it was like, okay, it made all that money. It's a great resource. Now some people know about it, but I need to make this stick. How can I make it stick? And I already knew about link building, but I wasn't doing it. Like most people don't want to do it. And I was like, I'm just not going to. But then at that point, I was like, man, this can really earn some decent money if I figure this out. So then I started to do link building. So at that point, I would say, I think I probably only got like maybe 30 to 50 links total, somewhere in that range for it to really be like start, like critical mass solidifying in the search results. And then I've just been adding so much content onto it every month or whatever for so long now, that it like I kept ranking for more and more, and then more links kept coming in, and now it's just getting more and more and more authoritative, like naturally. I don't even really have to do much anymore. So
awesome. Very cool. So quick summary, you published some content, got a little bit of traffic, the site went viral, and then you were like, while the traffic went away, I need to build some links. And then you got started with your own campaigns, right?
Yeah, that's when I really dove into link building, and thank God I did, because it was getting a little bit of traction, and it went like up like crazy because of viral, and then it went down like crazy, and then it was like, okay, I'm right back to where I was. Now what? And then I started to build some links, thinking, well, I guess I could try to make some more traffic come this way. And at that point is when I started to see that's like my websites, and you've seen graphs, they're slow rise. They're not like, that was an anomaly. Not all my websites, actually none of my other websites have ever done that since. It was just this really random occurrence. So like for the most part, it's a slow rise. It's a steady, slow growth, growth graph that's just going up, up, up slowly, right? Mm-hmm. That's the key. So
got it. Now, one thing, so Ron, I see we're at the top of the hour. Can you go a few minutes longer, or do we need to cut this off?
You can keep me as long as you want, Doug. Awesome. I'm here. I mean it. You can, as long as you want. I don't care. That's fine.
All right, cool. I'm going to finish a couple questions here on the link building, and then I think we may take a quick break, a pause, and then maybe save it for round 2 in a few minutes. So,
okay, that works.
So for you got into link building. What's your, maybe give like 1 or 2 sort of strategies that you do for link building? You're great at setting up systems, and I've observed and heard you talk about like the things that you set up, and it is definitely like project management, and
it's a system.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So what are you doing?
So usually, okay, so when it comes to link building, like me personally, I mean, I'm a big fan of saying test different link building, because I don't think, and this is after being in quite a few different niches, I don't think that there's one link building tactic that works really, really well across every niche. Like if you're in the finance niche and you're trying to do guest blog posting, good luck. You better have a budget, because they're going to ask you for hundreds of dollars every single guest post, because that's finance and that's what they do in that. Mommy bloggers, same thing. Like some of them get really expensive at that. So like I'm a big fan of testing different types and really seeing. And when I say testing different types, like I don't mean reaching out to 10 or 15 people and seeing if it works, and then if it doesn't, saying, nope, it's no good, I'm out of here. I'm talking about reaching out to like maybe 200 to 300 total targets, trying a particular, link building tactic. And then if that doesn't work at that point, you have a decent data sample size, then saying, okay, that didn't work. Let me try this other one. Because usually in all niches, I feel like you can find one tactic that works better than most. In all niches, there's going to be one tactic that works better than most. But me personally, what do I do now at this point? And I've done a lot of different tactics, but I think at this point, what I really focus on, I do a lot of guest posting now, because I think I found it, I've systematized it and made it kind of easy to be able, I have someone doing all the pre-outreach activities, the commenting on blogs, the replying to emails, that sort of thing, getting them warmed up, and then they kind of go in and pitch them. So I do that a lot. And then I also Haro, however you want to pronounce it, help a reporter out. That's one of the reasons why I've kept, if anyone's wondering, why do you still teach? One of the reasons I kept that is because I think when people hear professor, they immediately it garnishes, it just gains some respect immediately. Like it has like that title, Mm-hmm. So I do Haro because I can reach out to them, and I'm a college professor. So, whoop-de-doo, it's a college professor. So I'm more inclined to get links. So that actually works relatively well for me. I've done that. But like, what link building tactics have I done? I mean, anything that you're going to read about, I've probably done it. I don't do black hat stuff so much. I stay away from that. But like when it came to like, I don't know, just doing resource page link building, I've done that. I've done like blog commenting back in the day. I would never waste my time now, but back in the day I did that. I've done, and we've talked about this. This is like an advanced tactic of something that I did that worked really well on one website, and I think actually hurt me on the other website. Mm-hmm. Is what I call database link building, going back to the word database, which apparently I just love that word. It was the idea of creating let's just say a directory of sorts on your website. So security guard training, I'm just going to use an example because we've been talking about it. Maybe saying, hey, I'm going to create a directory of all the security guard training schools. I don't even know if that's a thing. Security guard training schools across all 50 states. You create that directory, and then you basically reach out to them and say, hey, you've been listed on my website. Would you be willing to link back to me? Like that type of outreach. That worked really well for me across 2 different websites. And one website still to this day ranks pretty well. The other website, this is like a cautionary tale. I did that super hard. I was getting an insane amount of links. I remember when we were talking about it, it was like, I mean, I'm talking 5 to 10 links a day. You know, it was like crazy how well it was working. But Google kind of, I think at that point, I think it's kind of categorized that website as a directory, because I think I went a little too big with that link building project, and it actually hurt that website. And I put a lot of content on the website, and it was a blow. And this wasn't that long ago. This was probably, a couple months, 3 months ago. So I still make mistakes. But at that time it hit me, and I'm still trying to figure out how to finagle and make it like get fixed. But that was like a big thing that I did that I don't think anything was, or many other people were doing. And it was working really well, but use with caution. Like I don't know the right answer to that, because it worked great on one website that was kind of smaller. I did it on another website that was supposed to be bigger, and I think it actually worked against me. So.
Gotcha. Cool. And just a quick summary. So you would you've done a variety of stuff, but generally your go-to is like just guest posting, like standard, do some networking. At this
point, yeah, because the websites and the niches that I'm working on, guest posting is great in those particular niches. I'm going to give away one other one that I remember. I heard this on a podcast, and it was it's a pretty interesting one. This is one of my secret ones that I'll tell everyone. So this is the juicy stuff. If you go to Flickr, right? One of the things when people are looking for images, usually they go to Flickr and they want to see a Creative Commons where it can be shared in the public domain, right? They want to do that. So this individual who was on, and I don't remember who this was. I would give him credit. This was not mine. I honestly cannot tell you who this was, but I thought it was pretty interesting. What he would do is he would actually take pictures himself, and then he would put them onto Flickr, tag them correctly and everything, and then say, yeah, you can use this, but make sure if you do that you give attribution to this particular website, right? That was his whole strategy. I did a variation of that to where I basically went out and I would never take images from Shutterstock and then just put them up there, because that's totally illegal, copyright issues. But I would find ways to get content that was in the public domain that was technically free in other places, put it up onto Flickr and say, yes, you can use that, but you have to link back to my website. That I won't say that it worked super well, but I did get some pretty high authority links from that because people were just looking for the images. So it worked, but it should never be a primary, but yeah, nowadays I do mostly guest posting. Almost exclusively guest posting. I still do where I present my websites to people and I say, hey, this could be a helpful resource to your audience. What do you think? And that's not guest posting. That's kind of just shotgun skyscraper, just kind of saying, hey, this is a thing. But yeah, for the most part, I still do guest posting. I think would probably be my number one at this point. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And quick note, I can't remember. I've heard of that strategy, and actually I use Flickr images as well, Creative Commons, of course. And I've gotten emails where people were like, hey, you didn't attribute this properly. You should link to the website or whatever. Which, the thing is, you're right. You will get some links, but I think the magic of that is you have to go back and do the reverse image lookup to find out who's using it, and then do the outreach. So
yeah, if you really wanted to go hard on it, yes, absolutely. With me, I literally, and even now I'm building a website. I'm doing this, and I'm getting content that it's images, but it's not like I'm going out with a camera and taking really nice pictures. These are images that anybody can get, but I'm getting them in a way that's kind of creative. I'm putting them up there. I'm actually not doing that outreach and reverse image lookup and saying that. I'm just putting it up there and hoping. And so far with this one website, I haven't gotten any, but I did it with another website and I got some. But if you really want to go hard with it, yes, you'd probably want to do the reverse Google image search. But again, I don't know that that's the best one out there, but it's something to consider, I don't think that there is one link tactic that's great for all websites at all times. I think I run campaigns, I'm okay, let's do, for an example, let's do an infographic and create that and then outreach to these 100 targets. And then I'll move on to a different campaign. Okay, now let's try this. Okay, now let's try, and I'll keep trying until I find something that seems to work, and then I'll really try to hammer it. So,
got it. Cool. And I think if people have other like link building questions, you could, leave comments and let me know, let Ron and I know, and we could dive into it a little deeper. I think what we could do, I'm going to hit a couple of the questions that people asked, some of which we've already like gone through. But I'm just going to kind of go through. So we have Echo is asking, what type of content was most popular in Google rankings in your audience? And by that, I mean, which type of articles ranked best?
Yeah. So, I mean, going back to what I had said, I'd probably say like the question stuff in these informational authoritative type websites that I create, right? For me, it was informational content type of stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'd have to say, the answer to that one for me in my situation. So
cool. And next is from Beauty Reporters. There's a series of questions which goes through a lot of stuff. So I guess you could sort of actually, how many sites do you have in your like portfolio, as we would call it?
That I'm actively working on at this point, that I'm actively working on 2, but total sites. Well, actually, I guess I should say 3 because my big site is still technically working on. But like I have about like, well, I'd say 5, no 6. I'd say 6 that I'm actively working on or have writers for. Let's put it that way. So there's 6 of them that are getting it, but I'm personally focused on 2. But I have other people handling the other ones that I still have.
Got it. And then how much revenue is coming from we'll call it the main site?
That's probably at this point, I figured this out the other day. I think it's like 60 to 65% roughly. Okay. Every month is coming from that. In terms of like the actual revenue, I think it's like, well, it's on my income reports. But it's like, I don't know total. I think it's, okay. I don't know what it comes down to.
The percentage is perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Percent. Yeah. So somewhere in there.
Okay, cool. Okay. Now, so you have 6 sites total. You're actively working on 2. You make 65% of it from one main site. And this is my question, actually, now that we went down this road. How much time would you say you spend each month on that main site, bringing in roughly $13,000
bringing in most of my revenue? So, and I had to look because as we're talking about this, so last month, March of 2019, this is why I like my income reports, by the way. March of 2019, it actually brought in $17,006.79. That's one. But if you're asking how much time I spent on that, or I spent on that website, it's shameful how little time I spend on it. And I really mean that. I spend the least amount of time on that website than I do any of my others, without a doubt. One caveat to that, I've recently been going back. We've talked about this. I've recently been going back and revising some articles on that website because I felt like some of the articles were low, or they were old. They were losing ranking a little bit. So I've revised them to bring them back up, and that works so well, by the way. If you're an individual facing that, like some of these articles were 2 years old, never touched them. So I've been doing that. But yeah, that's like. Yeah, that's most of it. But like the amount of time that I spend, honestly, like the 4-hour work week is a real thing with that website. Like maybe even less than 4 hours a week. And I'm not kidding when I say that. Like it's actually shocking how little. But like, it's taken me a long time to get there, and I built out a lot of stuff along the way. And I always try to build stuff to where I build it once, it's there, and it's good. I love evergreen content. I don't like having to update all the time. Mm-hmm. So that's how I run my business, and that's worked. So.
Okay. And I knew you were going to answer that, even though we've never talked about it before, but that is kind of how it goes. So yeah. You and I are both busybodies as well, right? So we have good work ethic, and we couldn't, like, even if we were only spending 3 or 4 hours on like our main site, we would still like make up other projects, which we do in other sites, and end up wasting 80% of our time on some other bullshit, most likely. When we could be, doing something fun, Yeah.
But at the end of the day, and this is the truth, like, because I remember people were asking how I stay. I want to go back to the questions, because I remember some of the questions that were listed were, how did I stay motivated when I was with an employer and I seriously was working 80, 90 hours a week between all the different things? Because again, I remember I had a full-time job. I was teaching at 2 different colleges, and I was getting my doctorate at one point while I was doing this. don't ever make excuses. Like that is brutal. That is brutal for anyone. Like I seriously got 6 hours of sleep a night. But how did I stay motivated? It was really simple. At that point, when I was at a full-time job, I would have to commute an hour to work every day, commute back an hour, and I would have to deal with a boss telling me what I had to do. It just irked me because I was like, I was really into marketing and I knew what I wanted to do. And I really wanted to help people and make a difference. I wasn't doing that at my job. So it was like that frustration. Like when I'd have a bad day at work, it was the best day for my website because I'd go home and I would work so hard for like 6 hours. I didn't have a family or anything either. Like now I'm married, but I don't have kids yet. So that's a benefit. But like I always stuck by the thing of you have to do at least 1 hour a day of work, always. Monday through Sunday, at least 1 hour a day. And usually you find out that on the weekends you spend more time. But like if you don't have that drive and that passion, like it's going to be hard to succeed. So when I started, it was that. And then how do I still stay motivated now? It's easy. I don't like, obviously like the money's great and it's like awesome. Like it's crazy. Even I never, ever would have thought that I got to where I am right now. But like, I don't know. I like building businesses. Like I'm confident that if I won the lottery tomorrow and won $100 million, yes, I'd travel and give away money, blah, blah, blah. But when I got done with all that and I came back to reality, I'm confident I would build a website that wasn't focused on monetizing anything and just give people information to help them. That's what I would do because that's just what I enjoy doing. I like growing a business. I like thinking of a business in my head, growing it, and then knowing, it gets 150, 200,000 views a month. That's super cool to me. Just that right there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but that's how I stay motivated now. It's like money isn't that much of an issue. And I had a crisis when I started to make, I think it was 15,000 a month when I was hitting that in revenue. That was a crisis for me. I don't know if you ever had that, Doug, but like for me, that was really tough because it was like I hit my goal and I was like, now I have the money that I was supposed to be happy with. And I had that money and it was like, cool. But I was like, well, now what? Like that was like the thing. It was like, now what? I hit my goal. And I'm like, well, I guess 20,000 a month, but who really cared? Like it wasn't about the money anymore. So I just have that drive of building things and I enjoy building bigger and bigger and bigger. Like I don't have a plan for a grand exit or anything. It's just what I like doing.
It's what you do. Yeah. I haven't had exactly the same crisis, but I've had other crises.
Yeah. Well, I think we've all had.
Similar. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And I'm going to go through a couple of the questions from beauty reporters who send it in. And I just kept asking questions before I got to hers or his. But how many articles do you publish each month across all your sites? We'll just say if you have that kind of stat.
Across all my sites is a tough one. That you're probably looking at across all sites right now, I'd say probably around 50 to 60 across all websites. All websites. Usually, like my main website, mm-hmm. the rule of thumb I had since like forever has been 3 every single week. That was like what I did. So about 12 a month. That was like what I did and done. And I don't know if there's truth to the fact that like Google likes it if you keep submitting content and your website's active. I don't know if that's true or not. I took it like, Google probably wants me to keep updating stuff. So, hey, I'll just do that. But yeah, like 12 a month there. But like some of the websites, like the website I'm building right now, it's 10 a week, so it just depends on where the website is in its life, the whole trajectory of it. So,
right. And I've gone through periods where I publish, 60 articles a month for several months and then don't publish anything for like multiple years. Like, yeah. And it's fine. So,
yeah.
And you, this person also asked about how many words each article. So roughly about 1,000, but if it needs to be longer or shorter, it will be. Is that right?
It depends. Yeah, it depends on the content. Like to answer a question, 750 to 1,000, I think is pretty reasonable. But if you're writing a review type thing, it could be 2,000, 25. It just depends on what the content is and what the user's intent is. Do they need something that's really, really in depth? Really think about it. If you research it, do you need that? So it just depends.
Keyword research. How do you approach it?
I use a few different strategies. So there's 2 different things that I do. First off, I will use, have you ever heard of Keyword Shitter before?
Yeah. I've heard of that one.
It's like the best name ever. I think it's hilarious. But that website, I love it because that usually gets like the Google autocomplete like responses into there. So I always use like who, what, when, where, why, how. So how do something related to your niche? Who does something related to your niche? Like I always do who, what, when, where, why, how. And I start with that. And I think in terms of that, and if you just press submit there, you'll get a bunch of ideas. Once I have that, I'll then go to Ahrefs. I always use them, and I'll plug them into there to see the competition. I personally, they base their competition strictly off of links, like 100%. They've said that, and I don't think that their competition metric is all that great. So I'll put it in there, but I'll also put it into Longtail Pro, or maybe it's Platinum now. That's like an old school keyword tool that a lot of people use, but I know there's a bunch of them out there, like keyword.io, I think is one. There's a ton of them out there, but I basically will put them into both. I'll put them in a spreadsheet, and I'll put the results of Ahrefs in one, and I'll put the results of Longtail Pro in the other. And I do that because I want to see a scope of both of them next to each other. Because I found sometimes Ahrefs won't even say, it'll say oh, it doesn't even have any search volume. Well, yes, it does. It has 80 a month. And I go for that, by the way, if anyone's wondering, I go for that low stuff. I'm okay with 20 to 30 searches a month on one of those tools, because usually 20 to 30 searches a month is actually 3 or 4 times that, because there's different variations of that question. So I do that keyword research using those. And then I'll also do, when my website is getting authoritative and it's starting to do well, I'll then look at my competitors, my poor competitors, and I'll basically look at what they've done. If they're doing something that I don't have at that point, and I know that my website's frankly more authoritative and better than theirs, I'll look at that. I'll look at that article, see what they wrote, write something way better, and then I usually rank above them. So, but that's a secondary thing. In the beginning, I usually will start with keyword shitter and doing it that way. So.
Very good. Okay, one more question before we finish up for now. So this is, again, from Beauty, whoever here. What's the number one reason that caused your income to increase so fast? And I looked at it the other day, so I'm going to generally summarize, but 2014, you showed a loss of $1,500. I think the next year, 2015, you made 6,000. The following year, I'm losing track of years, but we'll say 2017, it's 34,000. And then it was 70,000. And then it was about 160, something like that. So You're showing in my opinion,
it's 100% almost every year.
So I see those are huge amounts, but I'm also well, you put in so much work and effort. Yeah. And I know the struggle. I know that trajectory. So I know that didn't feel fast. 6 years doesn't feel fast. I'll let everyone know that even though those are big year over year jumps, especially the 5,000 to the 30 whatever K.
Yeah, it was 34,000. Yeah, I'm looking at my numbers right now. Okay, so yeah, cool. It went from 5,800 to 34,000 basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So what caused it to increase so fast? If you have to give one thing.
Before I give one thing, I will say for anybody reading it or listening to this, it wasn't fast. It was brutally slow. 2004. I mean, I worked a total of 16 months, to hit. I mean, if you add it all up, $3,500. That's how much I worked, and I worked, and I worked, and I worked. But what was it that made it grow exponentially, if you will, from there, or really grow from there? Understanding that's kind of when my main website started to get a lot of traction. And then I looked at it and I just talked, first thing I said in this call is all about revenue stacking, like stacking different models to make more money. For me, it was, okay, my website's starting to make it. What else can I do to get more juice out of the lemon? What else can I add to my website to make more money? So I added this, and then all of a sudden my revenue goes up $300 a month. And then I added this, and then it goes up 500. And then I added, it was just stacking more onto it, looking at not just making money through, with Amazon affiliates, not just making money there, but maybe finding other affiliates, maybe creating an info product, maybe creating a physical product. Once you have a website that's doing well and has the authority and is starting to rank and is pretty solidified as a decent competitor, try to make it better and then try to add other monetization strategies that stack. And when you do that, that's when the real magic happens. I would say that was the biggest thing, because my main website still makes the most amount of money, but that main website has also been diversified across so many different channels to make all that money, and it just keeps revenue stacking on itself. So I think that would probably be the biggest thing. And I keep making more websites too. I mean, that helps. But my main one that's the biggest thing.
Yes. And I'll point out one thing. I know we can't go in depth really at all, but there are always opportunities. 1 week ago when you and I were talking, you told me about a cool new opportunity, another revenue stacking opportunity that
Yep.
you had no clue existed.
Yep.
In my
And that's
opinion,
after like what, 4 years or 5 years, like
four
that came out of
years.
nowhere. Yeah, that came out of nowhere.
And it's not like
And
you
just,
haven't been looking for stuff, right?
no,
Like,
and like it was something I didn't think of. I got an email from someone and then I thought, hey, I should probably look into this. And then I come to find out that I'll just make it vague, but if I generate a phone call to a specific thing, and this phone call lasts for, I think it's like 90 seconds or 120 seconds, I make $400. That's off of one phone call. Never even thought about it. It wasn't something I thought about. It just kind of happened. And you always have to be, if you have a website that's doing relatively well, getting some traffic, you have to always look into new ways to monetize it and things to add on to it, right? That was what just happened. And like I said, that was after 4 years. And I was totally like, I didn't even know this was a thing, So it happens. It just happened. You just always have to keep your eyes open. So.
right. Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Ron. Really appreciate it. Where can people find you?
You can find me, because I don't disclose most of my websites. The best place to probably find me is just if you go to onehourprofessor.com. You can always find me there, get a hold of me there. And my income reports, I have abbreviations for all my websites, but you can follow along every month. You should be able to understand kind of what I've been doing. And I always include like lessons learned, things to avoid. Like you'll see there are certain months that income dips. I talk about what that was. And I always document everything. So yeah, onehourprofessor.com.
Very cool. Thanks a lot. And we're going to bring you back, answer some questions probably in the next episode here coming up. So really do appreciate it, Ron. And everyone check Ron out over at 1 Hour Professor. We're back with another success story interview with the Keyword Golden Ratio. Today we talked to Nick. Nick has been able to reach about $1,500 a month using the Keyword Golden Ratio. Nick is a full-time traveling musician, so this Amazon affiliate site is a great way for him to, earn a little extra money in his downtime, and the passive aspect is really outstanding for him. Nick lets us know about how much traffic he's getting to get to $1,500 a month, and actually it surprised me how well his site is being monetized per visitor, so that's pretty impressive. Nick tells us 2 big mistakes that he's made and what he learned from them, so hopefully you won't make the same mistakes. And overall, Nick is a great example of just being persistent and pushing past the hurdles over time. And I mean, he's been at this for a little while, but it's only been in the last 6 months or so when it really clicked for him. So before we get to the interview, I just want to let you know there's a link in the description for the Keyword Golden Ratio Masterclass if you want to, learn how to implement the Keyword Golden Ratio and a lot of the details behind it. So check out that playlist if you're interested. Also, if you're interested in starting an Amazon affiliate site, there's a link to my site, Niche Site Project, so you can check out some details about how to start a site and how I approach it myself. So let's get to the interview with Nick. Hey, what's up? I'm Doug, and I'm sitting with my friend here, Nick. Welcome, Nick. How are you doing today?
Hey, Doug. Thanks for having me on.
Cool. Really appreciate you coming on to share your story. And I just want to jump directly into the results and tell everybody why you're here. So can you tell me, I guess it's June 2018 right now. So can you tell me how May was for your Amazon affiliate site?
So May was the first month that my affiliate website made over $1,500. And I would say I've been going pretty hard on this for the last 6 months.
Cool. And what was the traffic like, if you happen to recall, in May?
Traffic in May was about 7,500 unique visitors.
Okay, cool. So $1,500, first time over that. Congratulations. That's a
Thank you.
Huge milestone. And I know, we've talked a little bit ahead of time. So I know you're on a very nice growth curve. So hopefully, you'll continue moving up. We do want to hear about you. So can you tell us a little bit about your background, what's your day job, that sort of thing?
So I am a touring musician. I play in a band. So I'm gone basically 8 to 9 months out of the entire year.
Wow.
So affiliate marketing for me is kind of a nice income stream that helps me pay for things like credit cards, card payments, auto insurance, and just as it's growing, I'm seeing that it's not just a side thing. It's an actual business.
Cool. All right. That's actually really cool. There's all sorts of different professions. I don't know any touring musicians myself, so that's pretty cool. Where are you from, by the way?
Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay, and you're based out of there, and then you're just on the road most of the time. Wow,
Yes.
that's crazy. Are there any like super awesome things about being on the road?
I mean, besides like not getting a lot of sleep, you get to see all the cities. You get to go out to cool bars and get to experience like the local. You know, you're a big beer fan,
Yeah.
so it's like you get to go and they'll give you a free case of whatever local beer is there at every
That's not
show.
bad.
So yeah,
Pretty cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
I guess did you go to university, college, or anything, or did you?
Yeah,
go?
I did go to
Okay.
University of Wisconsin, and I got well, I didn't actually graduate. That's the thing. I went into touring hard,
Okay.
and I dropped out in my fourth year.
Gotcha. What were you studying, just out of curiosity?
Music, bachelor of music.
Oh, okay. So it's
So,
like
same kind of thing.
yeah, you may as well.
I don't have the piece of paper.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Do you happen to remember like when you first heard about like internet marketing or niche sites or anything like that?
Yeah, I was in college, and I don't know how I got onto it, but I got into the Warrior Forum and just started just reading everything on there. And really, the whole idea of this, like this timeline that we're talking about in the last 6 months, it didn't click until this year. So all those years, it's been like 5-6 years, nothing. I never went for it.
Right.
It was
Gotcha.
always like, let me spend 2 months on this, give up. 6 months goes down the line, try again, fail, try again, fail, because I never gave it my all.
Right. Interesting. And I know, I hear I didn't get started on this stuff until like 4 years ago, something like that. I guess almost 5 years ago. Wow, time's flying by. But I was going to say, I hear the Warrior Forum was a little better back then. I mean, I feel like whatever I see from the Warrior Forum now is just like some big JV push to get out some product. And then it's like all the same people selling the same stuff that doesn't work. So you kept at it. And I want to emphasize this. So you're doing a 6-month push over the last little bit here. You're seeing great results, but you had like, a couple years or like 4 years or so of background in it. You were trying stuff for a while. So you just didn't roll.
Yeah, none of that stuff I was really passionate about. And I actually started this blog in 2016.
Okay.
And I just published, 10 articles or something on it. And they were terrible, mind you. Later in that next year, I got my first sale. So then it was like, oh, okay, I get it. I just have to go in and improve and just keep working at this. And this is fun to me because I'm actually passionate about the topic.
Gotcha. So, and I just want to make sure I heard that right. So you started the blog in like 2016, and then you got your first sale like a year later or so.
Right, exactly.
Okay. A year goes by, you kind of do some stuff, you make a sale, and then it sounds like almost a year passed. So like what was going on? How'd you get to the 6-month push of what was happening?
October of last year was when I noticed that I had one article, which is actually surprisingly KGR compliant now that I look at it. It ranked, it was like number 3 for the search term. Then I started seeing a lot more traffic. I started seeing 30 people a day just to this one post. By the end of 2017, I only made $190, but it was still, that could pay for a cell phone bill or a car payment.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's real money once, you pull it all together. So, and you alluded to it just now. If people don't know what the KGR is, it's the keyword golden ratio. From our conversation before, I know, obviously, and what you just said, the site took a while to get started. And I know the KGR, keyword golden ratio, played a role. So can you talk about like when you like heard about the keyword golden ratio and how you've applied it and that sort of thing?
Well, I first heard about it, I would say probably 2 months ago, when you initially had made videos on it, a lot of them, and I only found your channel because I was searching on whether or not I should buy a PBN, and thankfully I didn't, because I don't want to go down that road.
Sure.
But so about 2 months ago, I found the KGR, and I think maybe out of my total 50 or 60 posts that I have on my site, I'd say maybe 30 of them are KGR, and the other percentage of them are either like just big informational posts that I'm passionate about, like I guess just like top 10, like I'm going for like big search volumes.
Sure. Cool. And okay, so I just want to mention that again to summarize. So you said about half you got about 60 posts on your site?
Yeah.
Okay. About half of them are KGR compliant. Okay. And everyone, I want to emphasize this again, like triple emphasize it. So you only have like 60 articles, only about 30 of them are like intentionally monetizable with affiliate reviews. And then, is that right? Or they're KGR
Yeah, so
Okay.
some of the KGRs even are just informational posts.
Okay. But the overall point is $1,500. You're on a growth curve, and we could talk about, so I have the details in front of me, so I'll mention it in a second. But basically, you're on a good trajectory. You don't have a crazy amount of content. I mean, I mentioned a case study where I published a whole lot of content and it was really good, but you don't have to do that off the bat. So I'm going to just mention your earnings. January of 2018, $128, February, $220, March, $343, April, $587, and May, $1,550. So like that is moving up. And when you hear the actual, I mean, the graph looks cool that I'm looking at, but like when you hear the actual numbers, you're like, wow, that's really growing a lot. So that is a decent amount of content, Nick. So do you write the content yourself or do you have writers? How's that work?
So as far as writing the content goes, I write a good amount of it, and I author it depending on whether or not it's like a super personal kind of post. I'll author it as myself. Or if it's kind of like a general review post, I have a pseudonym that I use. And then I also do hire writers on Upwork, who I do a little bit more of an extensive review interview process just to make sure whoever I'm working with, A, I want to pay them well, and B, I want them to be passionate and familiar with the topics that they're going to be writing about.
Got it. So can you tell me about your interview process and like kind of how you deal with that? Because in general, I'm getting like almost anyone that could like write and do some research, but of course sometimes you need like someone with that inside knowledge, or they know what you're talking about. So it sounds like that's what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm noticing a lot of people when they send me a cover letter, they're telling me they're university students and they're studying the particular topic, or they're familiar with it, they're super passionate about it, it's a hobby of theirs. That to me is like a great indicator of like, okay, this person might be a good candidate.
Cool. And then from there, do you actually talk to him on the phone, or do you just have some back and forth?
Right now, maybe I should venture into that, but as right now, we just do the messaging system.
Cool. Okay. And that's easy enough. Just in general, it sounds like it's working well. How many people have you hired?
I have about 5.
Cool. And what are you paying them if you can share it?
Low is 15 per 1,000 words, and then as I've paid 35 too.
Okay. Cool. So it's
between there.
It's a decent range, I'd say. A lot of times I'll pay in that $15 range for 1,000 words. And I haven't paid that high just in general. I've gotten
a smaller
close.
Amount than normal.
About link building. A lot of people, they just want to apply the keyword golden ratio, never build any links, never do anything. Do you do any link building, or what's your situation on that?
I did go around to a couple, blogs in my niche. I did do some blog commenting and leave some, good content for them to respond to, but I haven't done too much link building. It's pretty much just all organic.
Cool. And it's really interesting because the keyword golden ratio works really well to bring the right traffic. And I mean, you're not getting a crazy amount of traffic. You have great earnings. So it seems like a really good sort of niche with a price range of the products. Can you
one thing to note on that too is everybody in this niche, I'm finding none of them have backlinks. So all of the competition is actually pretty easy to outrank.
How about that? Okay. But it's interesting, a couple things. One, it sounds like you have good content. You have qualified people writing for it. So even though there's not many backlinks, like a person would have to bring their A game. Like you're passionate about the topic, so you're able to make sure like good content is published. And that, so it's sort of defensible in that way because it wouldn't rank if it wasn't good content. Interesting. So that's kind of crazy that you found a niche that, you're passionate about, and it just happened to be something where people don't build backlinks. They're passionate about it and they write about it. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple people in the niche that they are using PBNs, and I mean, I can see them, but there's nothing I can do about that.
Right. Yeah. It's a pain.
It's just what it is.
Yeah. So on your site, like sort of on page sort of stuff, do you use like tables and native ads, buttons, stuff like that?
I do use AAWP, and that's about it. I do use tables too.
Okay. Awesome. And then do you have any tips for like creating tables? Do you like that plugin a lot? Or?
So I initially used to use TablePress, and I just found that the way you have to use HTML inside of it, like you have to drag the little boxes and try to type in them.
It's terrible.
Not easy to use. And I since saw you were talking about using like an HTML generator, table generator, and I haven't looked at that yet.
Yeah, I mean, if you're using AAWP does tables for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought so. I've been emailing with the developer over there. It seems like a great plugin, and they've been updating it over time, really improving. So, okay. And I guess, that takes care of your calls to action, just anything you need to do to put links in. That's what you do.
Yeah. It's much faster when I'm trying to add like a product box or something.
Okay.
I just type Amazon box code, done.
Okay.
It's all set.
And do you have, so you have some writers that help you out? Do you draft everything yourself? Once you get it from the writers?
I'm the content manager, if you will.
Okay. Cool.
And editor.
Most of the time when we hear these case studies, you just see like the headline, right? It's like, Nick, he's making $1,500 a month and he's on the road all the time. He's having the time of his life, free beer. Like it just sounds like some kind of fairy tale story. But a lot of times there are mistakes in the background. So do you have any mistakes that you could share?
Yeah, I have two. And the first one is, and this led to a great increase in my rankings after I fixed this problem, but I was intentionally stuffing the articles like overboard with the keyword. And I didn't even realize it. The content was long enough that I thought, well, I can use it in this sentence. It was fine, but it wasn't. So as soon as I went back in, removed a bunch of those keywords, the rankings I went to page 1.
No way. So do you have some guidelines on the sort of keyword density that you use?
Sure. It's very tedious. What you have to do is you have to check out page 1 on that keyword and go to all the people that you're trying to beat. And you have to just, press go to find and type that keyword in and see how many times you see that keyword pop up. And you want to figure out how long their content is. It's tedious, but if you can find that ratio that other people are ranking for, you should be able to slide in there.
Yes. And this is a super common question, like how often should I use a keyword? The answer is it depends, because you have to go look and see what Google likes, see what the users like. And that's the way to do it. You could use a tool called SEO Quake and just check each one individually. It'll give you the density and all that stuff. But that's really cool. So you made the changes and then you just shot up like in a week or something.
I'm watching it in a week. It happens.
That's really cool. Yeah. All right. So that was mistake number 1, which you fixed.
Mistake number 2. So everyone gets a little obsessed with picking out the right theme. You've heard this question a million times.
Yeah.
And I was too. So I was at a point where I was trying to pick out a new theme. And I did have an intention of buying this particular theme, but I did use a cracked theme on my website. And little did I know there was malicious code embedded into the cracked theme. Oh, man. And it just ripped my whole website apart. It had malware. It had all this stuff on it. I asked you in chat one day. Like, hey, Doug, do you ever have malware problems? No, it's just I was an idiot.
Gotcha. So
don't ever do that.
You know what? I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that's probably a thing because I know
it's a nightmare.
Interesting. So how did you get rid of the malware and stuff?
Fortunately, it was a pretty common one. So I just searched like what was happening, and there was a nice post about how to get rid of it. And so I bought some good security now. So.
And you paid for a theme. So,
yeah.
Okay, cool. And by the way, do you have any tips for like themes or anything like that? Since you were thinking about it.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts?
I originally had purchased a theme builder called Divi, and I found that it slowed down my site so much, and I didn't understand like why it was slowing it down. Like I didn't realize what kind of scripts or things were. I'm not like a coder, so.
Yeah,
I just ditched that theme and I went to a much simpler one. It looks great to me, So yeah. I say just stick with simple. You'll be way better off.
Cool. And was it a paid theme?
Yes.
Okay. And I was going to say, I'm looking at it. It looks good to me. Just overall simple, straightforward. No one else could see it, but just trust me. It looks good. What do you put on the home page? Some people were just asking about that the other day.
I don't really know what the best practice is, but I kind of just have like a post slider up top. It's kind of standard with most themes, and then it just displays like the recent posts in a category in each category.
Okay. And I mean, usually as long as it's not too overwhelming, like Some people
Right.
just have like 1,000 links on, or not 1,000, but they'll have like 40 posts on there, and that's just, it's too much. Too much.
Yep.
So simple. All right, cool. Nick, do you have any questions for me?
Doug, do you have any rules as far as internal linking goes? Like, is it a bad strategy or a bad practice rather to use like the exact keyword when you're just internal linking? Because I know if you do it from an external link, I guess that's bad now.
So a couple things. If you go and like do some research, and actually Ahrefs has a more recent case study on like anchor text ratios, you'll find that you can actually be a little bit aggressive in sites that rank number one. Often they'll have like 15 or 20% like exact match, or something like very highly correlating to a partial match. So you can get away with more than what we think, because a lot of times our information is from people that do gray hat, not always, but depending on the circles you hang out with.
Right.
And they may say you only want to have like, 1% exact match. That's actually really low. And if you have on my niche site project, I don't really do much link building. And if I look at links that I didn't do any guest posts for, I'll often see that they're using like the exact matched thing because it's the most relevant anchor text they can. So that said, it's not necessarily bad to have external links that are exact match anchor text. You just have to kind of keep an eye and make sure you have a decent distribution. If you're not doing any link building at all, then of course that is natural. And I mean, you may want to keep an eye on it just in case. Right. But as far as internal on your site, you can actually be fairly aggressive. Now, the thing you have to look at, and I don't talk about this much, I believe there's sort of like multiple factors involved. So let's say the post that you're trying to rank has like the keyword in the title, and then it has the keyword in the URL structure, so the post name or whatever, and then you have the anchor text, and they're all exact match. Like, I feel like there's a compounding effect when you stack all those on top of each other. So for example,
right,
you could probably get away with more if you had a different URL structure that wasn't as keyword rich or something like that. Maybe it's just a little shorter. But if you stack all those three on top of each other and you have some external links that also have that same anchor text, that could be a little much. Now, the good part is if it's on your site, you can put the links in, put the exact match in if you want, see what happens, and then adjust it later. What I usually do like a longer phrase that's a partial match. That way, like, it's just very conservative. And if I do have some external exact match anchor text coming in, it's fine. It doesn't really matter. Those are good, strong links, hopefully, from other sites. So less is more, but on your own site, you can test it and just see what happens and then adjust it.
Yeah, that's another thing. When you say less is more, like, I've been going back in and just removing affiliate links because I cringe when I go back and look at some of the old stuff. I mean, it was just littered with links.
Right. And I think a lot of people go overboard, especially it's easy to do when, you have all like these table plugins or other ways to put in links. And you're like, well, I'll put in a feature box, and each feature box has like 3 to 4 links in there. And then you have a table. Let's say you have 10 products. Actually, I audited someone's site the other week, and basically it was like, 10 products. Each one of those products in the table had 3 affiliate links. It was like the name, the image, and a button. And I was like, man, like, that's a ton of links. You got to get those out. So to wrap it up, Nick, do you have any advice for people that maybe are just getting started? Maybe they don't have a site yet. What can you tell them?
I would say if you're interested in kind of getting into the whole affiliate marketing thing, first of all, you have to pick something that you're going to want to continue to do. So like you have to be passionate about it. I mean, you don't have to be passionate to the point where it's like your favorite thing in the world, but you have to, have enough love for it that you're going to want to wake up every day and like, okay, today I'm going to work, an hour on this. Next day I'm going to work an hour, even if it's like after your job and you just get home and it's just a little side project you're working on is your website. As long as you are having fun while you're doing it, I think it'll be more enjoyable for you, first of all, and you'll have much better results too. Because once I started thinking about stuff that way, Like in the beginning when I started my blog, I wasn't even thinking about affiliate.
Right.
That's really what made my site move, was just really being passionate.
Awesome. Really good advice. Well, thanks, Nick. Really appreciate you coming on, spending some time. And if you're up for it, maybe in a couple months, we can get an update from you.
Absolutely.
And, everyone, if you have questions for Nick, he watches a lot of the YouTube videos. So leave your questions in the comments. Let us know. And if you want to get an update from Nick, do let us know as well. So really appreciate it. Have a great day.
Absolutely. Thanks, Doug.
See ya. This is another success story on the keyword golden ratio. Today, I talked to a pastor named Duke, and Duke has a site that made $967 in March of 2018 with just about 200 visitors a day. We're going to go over all the details. If you want to hear from Duke in the future and get an update, please be sure to leave a comment. So here are a couple things that Duke shares with us. His tips on viral type titles to help name all your blog posts to hopefully get a higher click-through rate, and his tips for beginners, which is a little counterintuitive, and I find it pretty interesting and very helpful. I actually agree with him. So let's get to the interview right now. Hey, I'm Doug Cunnington. I'm sitting here with Duke. Welcome, Duke. How are you today?
Doing wonderfully. How about yourself?
Doing really well, thanks. It's sunny here in Montana, and at least for the next 24 hours, it's not supposed to snow. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I'm glad I left cold country. We were in Gillette, Wyoming, so totally get it.
Gotcha. I want to hear about your site, Duke. I want to know a little bit about the earnings and just the traffic right now. And then we'll back into the story and hear how you got to that point.
Okay. Well, I have two sites now, but the first site I did that was a niche site, Amazon affiliate type site, actually was born out of frustration. And I was searching a project that I was trying to get accomplished for live streaming, and I could not find the information that I needed to get it going. And so I was using it for a specific purpose. I had started out trying to use an old camera, and how do you get the old camera to actually send you real video to a computer so then you can put it over the internet. And what I was looking for that I didn't know at the time was an HDMI to USB converter. Actually, that's what I ended up with, but I needed an AV out of that camera to convert to USB to go to computer. I searched and searched and searched, couldn't find it. Finally stumbled upon something in a forum and got what I needed. And I went, man, there has to be a website that deals with these types of technology issues that I deal with. I mean, there was a couple of them, but they were not Amazon affiliate sites. They were just blogs, and they were not even SEO optimized or anything. And I thought this would make a great niche for an Amazon site. I had been searching for a different type of website because advertising websites like with AdSense or with ad networks, the return on investment is continuing to drop, and the revenues are continuing to drop, and it's becoming a lot of work for a little money.
Right. And I'm sorry to interrupt you before we go on. So what is your revenue at right now that we're looking at, just so people can quickly get a sense of why we're talking?
Well, I just came in under $1,000 in March.
Cool. Congratulations.
Like
huge
967.
milestone.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe this next month coming up. So very good. What's the traffic at, just to give people an idea right now, like the last month?
In March, it was right around 200 visitors a day.
Gotcha.
So 6,000 people for the month.
Nice. So that's really, that's a great amount of revenue for that many visitors, I think. And I cut you off. I'm sorry, Duke. So,
that's all right.
So you're at about close to 1,000, about 200 unique visitors a day. And you were telling us that you were basically trying to find a solution to a problem, and you ended up with, a bunch of sites with maybe not great information. And did you eventually, so we have a conclusion to your story, did you eventually find the right cable?
Yes, I found the right converter. It actually was $120 or whatever, and I have a whole article on how you do it now. So
you could help others.
And that's how I started. And the niche has actually proven to be fairly popular. It'll never be a large site because it is so narrow in focus, but it'll definitely be profitable.
Very cool. Very cool. And I'm going to toot my own horn here. So the keyword golden ratio played some role in what you were able to accomplish. Can you just describe maybe like when you heard of the keyword golden ratio and then how you implemented it personally?
I had stumbled across Human Proof Designs, Authority Hacker, and Niche Pursuits. And in there somewhere, either you did an article or they referenced you. And so then I found you on YouTube. And at that point, you were talking about keyword golden ratio. And so I started looking. And about 40% of the articles I have on the first site is keyword golden ratio articles.
Cool. And you did that without knowing. You just were very minutely focused. Or did you intentionally write those with the keyword golden ratio, or you just discovered that you already followed it?
50-50. I went back and looked at some of them that I was already targeting, and they were keyword golden ratio compliant. But then I specifically went looking for more. So about 40% of the articles, it's like I'm going to give a different niche because I'm not going to out my niche.
Yeah, just use ballpoint pen just to...
Okay. They would be like best ballpoint pen for greenhouse workers.
And that's a great format, by the way, for people that are just getting started. It's like product type for a user type or a specific application. It's a great way to look at it. Yeah. Basically, it sounds like there was a lot of keyword golden ratio content. You stumbled upon it by accident. And then after you realized that that is actually where your site was getting a lot of traction, you doubled down on it. And now, you know, you're intentional about what you're publishing.
Exactly.
Right? Got it.
I have one article that is the best ballpoint pen for writing essays, say. It showed 10 searches, and I get 100 visitors a month off of that one article.
It's so misleading because when we first get started, we believe the tools, right? We think the tools are, I mean, they give exact numbers. So we expect there's a amount of precision and or accuracy. If you're a science nerd, you know the difference. It's really an estimate. There are just estimates. So I hear basically everyone has a story of like, yeah, I went after something with 10 or 0 searches. Now it's like the most trafficked page on their site, and it's like really against intuition. So interesting. Now let's go back further, Duke. So what can you tell us a little bit about your day job, just to get to know you? Like, what do you, I mean, you don't have to share if you don't want to, but your day job, like what you used to do, how'd you get into internet stuff?
Well, my day job is I'm a pastor. I pastor a small church here in the Bay Area. I started doing that. I started a church in 1988.
Okay.
So been doing it a while. I've also driven truck. That was my secondary income for a lot of years because, contrary to popular opinion, most people don't go into being a pastor to get rich. and most, I shouldn't say this, but most salary committees pray that God, you keep him humble and we'll keep him poor. And so you just don't make a lot of money, so I was bivocational almost my entire life.
Okay.
It just got to be too much back in 2011. Mm-hmm. And my mom had been bugging me to start writing for the local newspaper. So I decided, okay, fine. I mean, I was never good in English. I flunked. In fact, I'm a pastor, and I flunked speech in high school. So, so I was never good in English, but I said, okay, fine. She'd been bugging me for years. So I wrote for the local newspaper, and it was really popular. So at that point, I thought, well, why don't I put it on the internet? So I did what every dummy does and went and started a blogger blog, you know, and it was ugly.
What year was that? 2011?
2011.
Okay.
So I started doing that and had a little bit of success. And then I ran across a guy that ran a Christian personal finance website and was teaching about blogging. And he did an article on keyword research, and at that time he was recommending Market Samurai. And you know, that dates me a little bit.
Sure.
I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. And so I did an actual article that was based on search and what people are searching for, and it took off. And I thought I had hit the holy grail, you know. And so I started doing everything. I switched over to WordPress. I had lists upon lists and different things that people were searching for. And in my first year, I hit 500,000 people coming to the website, 500,000 uniques.
Wow.
Yeah. that was quite awesome. I got written up in papers and everything because it was
Yeah.
highly unique. Anyways, and I started doing some of the tactics that you've talked about that everybody else was doing at the time in order to gain rankings, including Gray Hat PBN links from Build My Rank and some of those. And at a certain point, I never got a manual penalty, but I did get an algorithmic penalty.
Okay.
And everything tanked.
Gotcha. Yeah. All internet marketers usually have some story like this. So.
Yeah. So, and I was still focusing on just getting traffic and doing display ads, not any affiliate stuff. At that point, I got really irritated at Google because it was a lot of work and a lot of effort.
Sure.
It's like, man, I'm just not smart enough. So I switched over to viral type websites, and I started a viral video type website, and it took off. And in fact, it took off to the point that I went viral on Facebook and had 1.3 million visitors in a week.
That's staggering. What year was that, by the way? So
that was, let's see, where was I? I think that was 2015.
Okay, so not too long. All
maybe
right.
14, maybe 15. I'd have to go look.
Okay.
Anyways, I was on Media Temple hosting at the time, and it broke Media Temple. They had their selling point at the time is we can scale no matter what happens.
You found the breaking point.
I found the breaking point.
What was the video? Just curious.
It was a video of this news report where there was this horrible accident, and this girl was feeling like she was going to die. She was trapped in the thing, and this priest came and went and prayed with her and then disappeared. Everybody was speculating, was it an angel? And so it just went viral.
How about that?
know. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So you did the viral site, and then those are really hard, right? Like it's a treadmill. You can't get off.
You got to feed the beast. Yeah.
Okay.
And I saw the handwriting on the wall as Facebook kept on tightening up its reach. On his Facebook pages, you got less and less return, less and less people coming. And so I saw the handwriting on the wall. So I went back to SEO, took all my old articles that I ranked previously, upgraded them, put them on a different website, did all the right things, and built 0 backlinks to it. And now it gets about 40 to 45,000 visitors a month.
Wow. Okay. Great. And this was the site that you had from back in the day, 2011, the Blogger days? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, great. So I'm going to jump around a little bit, and I want to go back to the site that is making almost $1,000 a month. Is that the one from 2011 or
no,
the new one?
No, it's a brand new site. The one that's making $1,000 a month. It makes more money than the site that gets between 30 and 40,000 visitors a month.
Okay, gotcha. And can you tell us, or how old is that site then?
The new one?
Yeah, the new one.
It's 10 months old. I started it back in July, I think, June or July, end of June, 1st July of last year.
Gotcha. I know you won't remember exactly, but can you kind of tell us about the trajectory of the earnings and traffic over time, just to hopefully illustrate a little bit of the Google sandbox and what it's like the first 6 months you're starting your site?
Okay, I've made my first sale in 6 weeks. It was a decent product, about $300. I target between $100 and $500 products. So it made its first sale. It took 3 months almost to the day to come out of the sandbox, but I did things to get it to come out of the sandbox early.
Okay. Can you share any of those?
Yeah, because none of it's hard. I started off, as soon as I launched it, I did a press release because new site being launched, blah, 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 blah. It's genuine news, so it works.
Okay.
Then I did, about 20 blog comments right in there someplace. I did 20 Quora answers.
Nice.
That pointed to the site. And I did 4 guest posts. One of those came from your tactic of establishing a relationship with blog comments.
Sure. Okay.
And then I share on Pinterest and on Scoop It. I don't know if you're available or familiar with Scoop It, but you actually get a backlink from it. So
okay.
Pinterest backlinks, Scoop It backlinks, just to give social
some presence.
Yes.
Got it.
And that's what I did. It took 3 months. And it was obvious it came out because it jumped. It was languishing at 5 to 10 visitors a day. And the first jump was up to between 50 and 75.
Gotcha. Basically overnight, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And just to recap, so press release, 20 blog comments, 4 guest posts, and some sharing, Scoop It, and Pinterest. Is that right?
Yeah. And Quora.
And Quora, 20 answers on Quora. Nice.
Yeah.
Now for the press release, I've never done that. I've heard it's a piece of, an early launch strategy like you described. Is there anyone that you would recommend? And it's okay if you don't, because I don't know who they are or anything. So
don't go for the $5 press release on Fiverr. You get what you pay for.
Okay.
I went with Human Proof Designs, their press release service.
Okay.
You can find a little bit better pricing, but their press release was good, and I got over 300 backlinks from different news websites that have good authority. So they're no follow, but no follow helps too.
Right. And I believe that as well. Plus, I mean, at that point, it's brandable, right? It's the brand name. That's great to have early on, because that's what a real website would have. So
yes.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that, because some people do ask about the sandbox, and I've heard different formulas, and I've also heard like I did the formula on this site and it didn't work, and then I did it on these two and it did work. So I think there may be like some variances, other factors.
There is variance.
Sure. Okay.
I did exactly the same thing on my second site, and it's just now looking like it's coming out of the sandbox, and it's been over 4 months.
Gotcha. Okay. How many posts did you have on the site within that 3-month period? What did you launch with?
I launched immediately because I knew I was going to have the posts within 2 weeks. I'd have over 10.
Okay.
Writing is not hard. It's gotten kind of mind numbing. So I'm learning how to delegate that.
Right.
But in a 3-month period, I probably had 30 to 40 posts on the site.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. See, once you got out of the sandbox, you were making a little bit more money because you were obviously, getting 10 times more traffic than you were. So from like months 3 through 10, can you kind of remember like a couple of the milestone points? Basically, did it grow like really fast, or what was the situation?
It was kind of interesting. I still find it interesting today because the traffic jumped. In the first traffic jump, we broke our $100 mark, and that was a milestone, $100 month. And that was probably in month 3, maybe month 4. And then it jumped up to the $500 range fairly quickly. It was, by month 6 for sure, because, it went into November and December were $500 months. Mm-hmm. And since I'm not targeting general consumers, I'm targeting a business, I did not see a big Christmas bounce.
Good to know. Interesting.
Yeah, I found that interesting as well, because I was kind of expecting, all right, come on Christmas.
Yeah. And it was flat. Okay.
It was flat. But then January, where in this niche, new budgets are figured out and released and what they're going to spend on different products. In January and February, it jumped up again. And so January was like 700, February was 800, and March was 967.
Gotcha. And I take it traffic is growing. You're still adding content.
Actually, I'm just now getting back to it. In January or December, I went to another site to start building a second site. And so from December until now, I have been building the second site, and it's a huge site. It's not just a small one. And from December until today, we have posted 378 posts, I think, articles.
Wow. That's a lot.
And we got another 60 to go, and then we will be done with phase 1.
Wow. Yeah, that's a huge site. Any tips for people that are looking or thinking about doing that type of sprint of work?
You can't write it yourself.
Even if it's easy to write, it's too much.
Yeah, you can't write it yourself. And that's another thing I learned from you, is how to figure out how to hire writers, what I'm looking for, how to do a template so a writer will put it into a format that then I can just pretty well copy and paste into my template and it's done. And so I paid, I think it's around $3,600 for 220 articles. Plus I've been doing the best lists and buying guides. Some of the buying guides, I just recently found somebody did a really good job with buying guides. And so.
Gotcha. You can get them to double down. Now, do you have a content editor who does the formatting as well? That's something I haven't, when I do that similar work. Team of writers, one content manager to do the formatting and stuff and editing, and that sort of just takes me out of the mechanics in a lot of ways. So do you have that same type of role?
No, well, my wife does the editing for spelling errors and grammar and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So she cleans up the articles a little bit if they need a little cleaning up. I finally found a real English speaking writer that it's obvious they grew up speaking American English, and I don't have to worry about it as much. I do the formatting on the website, but that's because I actually kind of like that.
Okay.
I'm kind of a geek when it comes to making things look pretty.
Yeah, I mean, that's a key thing to understand what you like doing, and it drives me crazy. So I need to stay out of it. I mean, actually, I don't mind it. I do it so much slower than anyone else. So I stay out of it.
Right. I can format. Of course, I got systems in place that just kind of work for me, but I can format a 2,000-word article in about a half an hour.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, it sounds like you use some of the templates that I give out for free. By the way, if people are interested in the templates, there's a link below probably for Niche Site Project. And basically, I give away all the templates. So if you just go there, sign up for the email list, you can get it. So you use my templates primarily, right?
The ultimate Amazon review template.
Got it.
I tweaked it some just for what I'm trying to do, but every piece that is in your template is in mine.
Okay. And that actually you answered or started to answer the question that I was going to ask, which is when you're starting with someone else's templates, how do you modify it for your own use? Because basically if you just take the templates, it's a great starting point, but if people just use and copy things directly, they're kind of missing the point. So how do you customize things?
For me, what I do is I go looking around. I take the template and I know I want all this content, but how do I want to present it? And so I went to the Wirecutter. I went to Outdoor Gear Lab. I went actually, and I liked it. I went to the Top 5 Lawnmower site that you did a breakdown on. And he had this little box at the top that gave bullet point ratings and stuff. And I went and I stole it. I go find things that I like that I can add into the template so that it is unique to my site.
Okay. And to summarize, so if people have a template that they've gotten from somewhere else, it's great to use as a starting point, but then one should investigate, see what they like, put their own spin on it, and customize it for their own site. Right. Basically.
Yeah. Like the Wirecutter. The Wirecutter has, the little box with our pick and, just a little bit of customization that they put in that content. Well, I went and I have a box that says editor's choice and first runner up and honorable mention. Just a little bit different, but unique to my site.
Couple other questions. This one, it's kind of referring back to the viral site. So I'm curious, did you learn anything on the viral project that you were on that you can now apply to niche sites as you're doing them now?
Headlines.
Okay.
First of all, get over the thought that it's clickbait, because the reason clickbait is because it works. Okay? You can think it's horrible or whatever, but your purpose as a business owner is to get people to come and view your site. So then it's okay if you have clickbaity headlines as long as you give them good content and it's not just garbage.
Right.
For instance, I have one headline on my newer site, and it's about a smaller sized guitar. So I said it's something to the effect of brand name, model name, review. The only time size doesn't matter.
That's pretty good. It's clever. Makes people smile. Yeah. I didn't even know what you were going to say. That's a good one.
And so that headline gets clicks.
Yeah. And I mean, it'll pay off if, it originated, right? Or this question originated with the viral sharing on social. But I mean, when you're looking at the SERPs, if you're targeting a keyword, a more interesting title, that's going to get more clicks, no matter what. And that helps the rankings.
Once you're on page one, they start judging which one is getting the most clicks, and you can beat some big sites if yours gets more clicks than the top spot.
Very cool. Awesome tip. Now, do you have any tips for people that are just getting started and maybe launched a site before, but they haven't really made any money? What would you tell them?
That some very ugly sites can still rank. I know from my first sites, they were pretty ugly. They can still rank. And I say that not because I want you to have an ugly site, but I want you to stop stressing over whether you have everything perfect and get your feet wet. You can learn that, that was a dumb mistake 6 months later and fix it. But if you wait until you have everything, all the knowledge you need, you're never going to get started. And if you don't get started, you're never going to learn, because guess what? Even if you spent the next 6 months watching video after video and reading blog post after blog post, until you actually do it, you're not going to learn what works and doesn't work.
Well said, Duke. Really appreciate it. And thanks for the time today.
Oh, not a problem. My pleasure.
Awesome. All right, thanks, Duke. Really appreciate it. And I'll give Duke another shout out. He's actually one of the moderators that helps out all the time on the live stream. So Duke, I really appreciate it. I couldn't do the live streams without help from moderators like you. So again, if you want to hear more from Duke, be sure to leave a comment. If you have specific questions, feel free to ask. I can, always bug Duke to help me answer some of the questions about his site. So thanks for watching. Be sure to check out some of the interviews with other successful niche site owners like Ellen, Wesley, and Jaron. I'll put some links for those interviews below, and be sure to check them out. Thanks. This is an update with Duke. And Duke shared his success story a few months ago. And if you haven't watched the first interview, you should definitely check it out. We'll put a link in the description for you. But recently, Duke hit $3,000 in 1 month, and that was back in December, so that was part of the retail season. He's settled out at about $2,500 per month at this point in time, which is like early in 2019. This interview is awesome because Duke shares tons of details. So an interesting thing is Duke has two sites now. One has about 500 posts and the other one only has about 70. And he lets us know the surprise is that the site with fewer posts is actually more profitable, and he's having a little trouble with a site that has all that content. So we kind of dig into that. Additionally, Duke tells us about his Pinterest strategy, and he put a lot of time into this, and I've been sort of negative on Pinterest and spending time there in general, but Duke has figured out a system. He's been able to get traffic pretty quickly using Pinterest. The other cool thing that Duke lets us know about is link building, or the lack of link building. And I think a lot of the early success is around not necessarily the keyword golden ratio, but keywords that are similar to KGR compliant terms. So let's get to the interview now, and I want to thank Duke again. He's been a big supporter of the channel overall, and it's great to speak with him and have him in the community. If you have any questions for Duke or for myself, please leave a comment and let us know. And if you want to get another update from Duke in the future, let us know also. I may be able to convince him to chat with me again. So let's get to the interview now. What's up, Duke? How are you doing today?
Well, it's another day in paradise. Even though it's raining, it's still nice. And finally got done with the move that we started back in November, and so we're starting to get on schedule again and get our routine going.
Fantastic.
So it's good.
Well, I really appreciate you hopping back on for an update. So for people that aren't aware, Duke had a success story to share about something like 6 months ago. I'll put a link if you haven't seen it so you can check it out. So this is sort of a checkpoint, and you're a fixture in the live streams that I do. So if you're not there one day, people ask about it and people want to hear the update. So
yeah, it kind of made me feel good that people were asking. It's like, gee,
yeah.
I must have made an impression.
Yeah, you definitely did. I mean, it's one of the most popular interviews we have on the channel. And I guess you're just a likable guy. Back then you were making about $1,000 a month from Amazon affiliate revenue, and it's been about 6-7 months. So kind of update us. What's been going on?
Well, Christmas season was good, but not as good as I had hoped. Broke over 3,000 during Christmas. The smaller site is doing really well and the return is really good. The larger site did not do as much as I had hoped. So it's kind of, I wouldn't call it struggling. It's profitable, but it's not nearly the return compared to the smaller site.
Gotcha. And so you have two sites. One of them is a little younger than the other, and one of them is a little older.
Yeah.
Can you tell us just like sort of the breakdown, like the content that you have on each one? And if you, obviously we're not going to mention the sites here, but like if you could give us an idea of like the approach and difference in each one.
The smaller site, which is the older site by 6 months, it is a niche site or a topic site. It is geared towards businesses that use different types of products. Instead of going directly to consumers, I instead went to a business that has a lot of questions and a lot of needs of how to do this and how to do that. And so it is probably 40% informational, 60% money pages.
Okay.
The larger site is directly to consumers, and it's a general niche category, basically a review site. I targeted 22 different product lines, not brands, but types of products, and then did between 15 and 30 posts per each product. It is probably 20% informational and 80% money pages, or targeting money keywords.
Gotcha. Okay. And over there, it sounds like you, if I do my math right, you have a few hundred articles on the larger site?
540, I think.
Okay. Did you write all that?
No. There was a lot of lessons I learned with this larger site that is serving me well now, but was quite the struggle at the time. I didn't write, I might have wrote 10 of them.
Cool. Okay. All right. What I want to do is dig in on that larger site. And when did you start that one?
Last December.
Okay. So last December. So that is like 2017, right? December 20s. Like.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We're in 2019, right? Yeah, 2017.
I get this question all the time, right? So it's like, oh, I found several different product line keywords. Can I create a general site? And my answer is, well, I wouldn't do that, and I never have. But people do that, and I have seen some that make money and they're successful. But usually the cautionary tale that I give is like, well, that means you're competing against like the Wirecutter or other very large sites. And typically you're spread too thin. There's a lot of content that you have to cover and you'll never finish, right? It's like a never ending battle to catch up. It's always a compromise. So again, I've never done it, but from my observations, that's what I see. So what do you think? What did you learn?
Well, I had heard the same, you and others say it wouldn't be recommended, but I have a little bit of a contrarian personality in me. Sure. When somebody says you shouldn't, sometimes I do.
Right.
And I also wanted to test my skill to see if I could. Would I recommend it? No, for two main reasons. A, the competition is a lot tougher. And B, to get Google to see you as relevant for the topic that you are trying to rank for is much tougher. I've made it profitable, so it's not like I lost money or it didn't work, but it was 5 to 10 times the work in order to get it profitable.
Yep, that's a good way to put it. And most people, as you know, they would never follow through as far as you did with the you're a stubborn man, I could tell.
Yes.
So like you published the 500 articles, you invested probably thousands of dollars into it just on content without the guarantee, right? Like we're all taking a risk, investing our time and energy and money into it. It's great that you got it profitable, but at the same time, like you're saying, it was just more work than it needed to be potentially.
Yeah. Well, my smaller site up until just recently only had about 70 articles on it, yet it made more money than my larger site.
So just to emphasize again, so it's like 70 articles versus 500 and something, and it was more profitable.
That tells you exactly what you need to know.
Right.
I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to do something with the larger site. I don't know if I'm going to sell it. I might sell it. It's profitable, making about $1,000 a month, so I could make a little bit of change off of it. Or if I'm going to break it down into about 3 different niche sites. So I haven't decided yet.
Now, I can't remember the name of the site, but there was a large site, like wire cutter size, and they were acquired, and the new owners broke it up to like 6 new sites. What was the name of it?
About.com, I think.
Okay.
They switched it to, there's about 6 different sites. Now I can't think of the names off the top of my head.
I think it's like Life something.
LifeWire's one of them.
LifeWire, okay.
Yeah.
So the point is, they, like About.com obviously had like a crazy amount of content all over the place. And they were like, hey, like, let's try this. Maybe it was a lot more strategic. I'm summarizing. I read the headline, but I didn't read the whole article.
Right.
So basically they split it up in like profit, traffic. Like you could see it if you just do some investigating, you could see the growth that they had. So that's an interesting idea. And you said it's making about $1,000 a month?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the other site making?
It makes between 1,000 and 15 now.
Okay. So you're about 2,000, 2,500 consistently. Yep. Nice.
Yeah.
And you started the older site at the end of 2017. So within a little, like in about 18 months-ish.
18 months.
You hit about $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
Nice. Very, very cool. So with the amount of content that you published on the larger site, from a content standpoint, what did you learn about, hiring writers, working with writers, just running that machine of content?
Well, I started off by trying the Upwork method and hired writers. And honestly, I could not find ones that did a good enough job. Mm-hmm. I kept on they would say they were native English speakers, send me something that looked good. And then when I got the real product, it was not nearly as good, and it wasn't native English speakers. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if they were farming it out to somebody else or what. But anyways, so eventually I got frustrated with Upwork, and I went to a content broker, a company, and they have done an excellent job for me. And so for about I pay $20 1,000 for 1,000 words, and they produce great content.
Okay.
As good or better than I could.
Okay, cool. We won't mention it right here, but we'll discuss after, and then include a link if appropriate. So
right.
Put it that way.
Yeah. Later on, I saw that John Dykstra also uses them. So.
Okay, cool. Friend of the show, good guy, John. So. Yeah. Okay. Very good. So you started using the content broker, good deal, high quality. So.
Yep. And I still do all my own formatting and publishing, but that's I don't know if that's me not wanting to delegate or if that's because I really like to do it, but that's where I put in my SEO stuff to make it search engine friendly. So
sure.
I don't ask the writer to be an SEO. In fact, I give them no SEO instructions. I just ask them to write. Then I put in the SEO.
Perfect. Okay, cool. And I think it's good. Like at some point you have to do the QA, the quality assurance at some point. So it's a fine time to do it. Right. And then you could put in the portion, right? The SEO expertise that you don't want to outsource. That's your specialty. Right. So
yeah.
Well, onto SEO. When you get the content, actually just take us through the process. What format do you get it in? How do you upload it? Like what are you doing for the SEO portion?
I get it in a Word docs format, and I just I'll put in the title. A lot of times I've just given them the keyword as the title, so they have the keyword, and then I'll rewrite the title. So I'll put in the title, and I make sure that the keywords in the title and in the URL and the meta title, meta whatever, H1, all that stuff, which WordPress normally does for you automatically. My sites are running, and you've mentioned this theme before, but they're running on the Rehub theme. Mm-hmm. And so, and it uses WordPress Bakery. It used to be called Visual Composer or whatever. So instead of using the new Gutenberg, I just switch it over to Visual Composer, and I'll just paste the article into the content area. Then I'll add an H2 that has the keyword in it, I will make sure that the keyword is in the content once. There will be variations of the keywords in H3s. I'll put in an original image. In fact, I use a Pinterest optimized image, so it's a vertical image instead of horizontal. And I'll put, sometime, it all depends if I'm getting lazy or not, but I'll put the keyword in the alt tag of the image.
Yep.
And usually it's best read widgets image.
Right.
And that's my
little
alt
image.
tag.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good. All right.
And then, like what you do, the first mention of the product, I'll link it to Amazon. Then under features, I have a content box that I get from Content Egg that shows features, price, and images. All, you can tab through them and see everything. And then I'll go through and I'll list it once more in a little call to action box at the bottom of the article.
Okay, good. So to summarize some of the technical stuff, so you're using the Rehub theme.
Yes.
Okay, which I've talked about a lot, but partially because you and I discussed it before. I heard it from a couple students in Five Figure Niche Site, and then I checked it out, and it's a great theme. It has the visual or the WP Bakery, so you can do some, some custom design if you want to. And then you mentioned Content Egg. So what is that for the people that don't know?
That is also a plugin. There's a free version and a paid version. It works in conjunction with the Rehub theme. They've collaborated together. What that does is it pulls all the Amazon API information for you. You can do it right from the back end. You can put in your product or your ASIN number. It'll pull it right up. You can put in a short code, and it gives you a nice little call to action box or information box of some kind, that type of thing. Okay. The thing I like about it the most, and its back end of the plugin itself, is it has a tab for all the products that you are covering in your website. And it'll tell you which products are out of stock or discontinued, and you can just go there and replace them and keep it all up to date. And it's 1,000 times faster than trying to do that manually.
Beautiful. Yeah, that is an auditing situation if you want to solve that on your own without a tool.
Yeah.
So with the paid version of Content Egg, is that what you get, the extra checking?
Well, yes. With the paid version, you get the extra checking. You also get eBay, Walmart. You can have, almost every affiliate program out there, it has connection to their APIs. I use eBay because on my reviews I give a price comparison, so they can either go to Amazon or they can go to eBay, whoever has the cheapest priced.
Nice. So what's the payout typically on the eBay side? How's that work?
eBay's different. They pay you a percentage of their profit instead of a percentage of the total sale. They pay you a percentage of the profit that they make. It has came out to be very comparable to Amazon. I'm usually between 5 and 6% of the sale price on eBay.
Gotcha. Interesting. Okay. Is there anything else on the content side or on-page SEO that's worth mentioning?
One of the things I'm doing, and especially working on the small site, is there's your dog. I can't remember his name.
Georgie is.
Georgie.
She's sensing something in the front. Someone closed the door.
Anyways, one of the things that WordPress Bakery allows you to do, especially as it's fitted with the Rehub theme, is you can actually do your own related content at the bottom of the post. So you just pull it up, you can do manual, then it'll search for, you can put in put in red widgets, and every article on red widget, it'll pull it up and you can start adding them. So you have control of your related content. You can do it once. It's done. It's not done by a plugin, and it's done relevantly.
Yep.
So that's very important. On my small site, I get 1.8 actions per visitor. Either it's pages, or it's click-throughs to Amazon or eBay, or it is some type of, they have completed a task of some time on my website.
And how do you track that? How do you track actions per user?
Well, I was using Google Analytics up until this month. You can set up an event in Google Analytics, and you can set it up to track all outbound links, or you can set it up to track links to a certain domain, which then you put in Amazon.com. You can set it up to, well, it already tracks page views, but you can set it up to track downloads, all kinds of things. So you use events, and then I also use an adjusted bounce rate event, which is a timer, and so it'll ping the browser that the person's using every 15 seconds, so you get a much more accurate time on site. And if they've engaged in your content at least 15 seconds, I feel they've engaged with your content and didn't just come there and go, ooh, this is ugly, and bounce back.
A lot of people ask about how to track this stuff. Was it pretty easy for you to set up?
I used Google Tag Manager, which there is a couple good tutorials on YouTube. And also, if you're a reader, search setting up Google Tag Manager. The analytics code is harder, so I use Google Tag Manager. Recently, I just switched. I dealt with some negative SEO over the last year. Some people just got jealous or wanted to make it fail or whatever.
Right.
After I did a couple interviews, and I see them come and find me. I mean, I'm too transparent, but that's okay. I dealt with negative SEO, and I was dealing with a negative SEO attack, I believe, where they were sending bounce bots to my site to bounce in and bounce out to give me bad user metrics with Google. And that was being tracked. The only thing it could have been tracking, because they were coming in actually using, it was obvious they were bots. They were using Microsoft Internet Explorer 9 and Windows NT or Windows Vista or Windows 7. And it's like, who uses Windows Vista anymore? Yeah, come on. So they were obviously on an old machine that they were just, they did a program. Well, I got concerned, and I would see that my Google referral traffic would drop when these guys would come and do their little thing. So I eventually switched out of analytics and switched to server side of PWIC. It's called Matomo, but they provide the server. And so, and it has all the same analytics, and it's $9 a month, so no biggie.
And so by doing that, does that remove the effectiveness of the bounce SEO?
I'm not sure. I am assuming that Google, they have said they don't, but I never believe anything Google says they don't do. They say they don't use analytics, but I noticed that it was affecting my traffic. My guess is they may use analytics as a confirming signal, maybe not a ranking signal, but a confirming signal, which would be, okay, we think we should rank it here. What does analytics show?
Sure. Interesting.
That's my guess. And that's just a guess, and I could be wearing a tinfoil hat,
Right. There's so many factors in the correlation, and it's who knows. So what was the name of the analytics tool?
It's PWIC. PWIC's been around forever, but you used to have to put it on your own server in order to get it to run. It is called Matomo, Matomo.
I typically stick to analytics for simplicity, and then I've actually never, even as data driven as I am, I've never gotten into tracking the clicks and the activity and stuff on the site as much. But a few months ago, I try and keep up with folks, even if I don't do a proper update. But you were telling me about some of the Pinterest experiments that you were doing, and because you had things set up like you mentioned with a tag manager, you were able to get some decent data from the Pinterest stuff that you're working on. So tell me about what you did and some of the findings that you have so far.
What I did, I already had the article. So people who are doing this, if they're just starting out, they probably won't see the increase as quickly as I had it. I redid all my featured images on the website to a 600 by 900 pixel featured image. Now that's not, when they come to my site, they don't get blasted with this huge featured image before they can see anything. In fact, I don't even have a featured image at the top. It's just the website header and then the title. But then in the content, I have a narrowed down or a smaller version of that featured image in the content near the top. I did that for all the articles. I had an old Pinterest account that I fired back up, and I did keyword-rich description for the account. Then I did 22 boards for each product line, and those were keyword-rich both in the title and the description. And then each pin, basically I used my Google meta description, where you put in the 150 characters or whatever for Google. I used that as my pin description and then did relevant hashtags with it. And so I started out, I was getting just a trickle of traffic without doing anything, between 1 and 5 visitors per week. And I grew that in 3 months to 100 visitors per day. And that happened at the time when Google started all their updates in August, Medic and whatever. Sometimes I would get dinged, sometimes I wouldn't get dinged, but it irritates me when Google does updates and I haven't been doing anything wrong and I get dinged. And so I decided I was going to have a second source of traffic.
Right.
And so that's what I did. Now, it is not the same as Facebook or Twitter or those social media. It is actually a visual search engine. People go to Pinterest to find out how to do things and to learn about what they need for projects they have and everything else. And it's not just women. Believe it or not, I have 45% men and 55% women that look at my profile, which is I got a higher percentage of men than women compared to the site, but there's enough men on there to make it worth your while. And it's not all recipes and, Etsy crafts. Some of my pins are getting repinned like crazy because they're beautiful images of the product. So I did that, and then there's a free version of it and then a paid version of it, but a program called Tailwind that is a scheduler for Pinterest and Instagram, but I use it for Pinterest. It makes my workload about an hour per month in pinning and repinning content and doing the strategies. And basically the strategy is have your own boards, have boards that are related. Say, for instance, you're into lawn care and you're pushing lawnmowers. Well, then you can have an outdoor barbecue board because people barbecue on their lawns or barbecue in their yards, and you attract similar type of customers to what your products would be geared towards.
Nice. So think of the audience, think of the market, not just the product.
Exactly. Think of your market. Who would buy your product? Then think of what else would they be interested in. That it doesn't have to be you. Then you can bring in pins from other people who are fitting that niche. They in turn will do the same for you, and pretty soon you've developed a network and you don't have to talk to anybody.
Which is the goal. That's our goal anyway, right?
Yes.
So, okay, cool. It's funny because we were chatting beforehand and I'm doing some updates with other people. Everyone is like so interested in Pinterest. There's a student of mine, she's in town. So I invited her over. You'll hear it on the podcast feed on the YouTube channel as well. But we were sitting right here earlier and she was telling me about Pinterest. She was telling me about Tailwind and like exactly what you're saying. She spends a little time each month. She batches it. She sets up her whole month and then it's set.
Yeah, I spend about an hour a month.
You said you went from basically, a few visitors a day from Pinterest to about 100 within 3 months. So has it leveled off or does it grow?
It actually has declined a little bit since Christmas is over, but everybody I've talked to that does Pinterest says that's normal, but it is steadily growing. It dropped down to 70, but it's still 70 to 90 and it's still growing.
Okay.
So
cool. Now, did you notice a correlation between the posts that were being pinned or the most activity with the ranking? So was there a correlation between those?
The correlation I've seen is the more engagement your pin gets, the higher it will rank in the Pinterest search traffic. Okay. It really has very little to do. It has to do with the relevancy of your description and title, but it has little to do with what you've done on your website and how great your website is more about the engagement of that pin. So in all honesty, you could have a really crappy website and make this great pin and you'll drive traffic.
From that point of view, like it's all about that image, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
how did you create the images? Did you do it yourself? Did you outsource it?
I outsourced the first batch. Again, didn't like too much what I got. So then I went and found LifeWire's cousin. It was in the same niche. I don't remember the name of it, but it's one of the other about.com. I found their Pinterest board and looked at their pins, and they're all it's Madison Avenue. Mm-hmm. They've paid somebody to do their pins. So then I went and took their format, not their images, but their format, how their styling and stuff, and I went and duplicated it in Adobe Illustrator and used that. Different colors, different fonts, but basically the same format.
Okay, cool. And that's interesting. So you found something that was working and then you emulated it without copying it, which I'm sure,
yes.
There's hardly anything original. I'm sure they got that from somewhere else, right? So
yeah. And then I've done some experimentation since, and I've actually found a really good review template to use. So I'm now using that.
Okay, like review template, like for what?
For review posts instead of a best list for a review post. Basically, a big, huge, beautiful image of the product. Underneath it, with a gray gradient, I have just the product name, like the Acme Red Bomb, and then below that, I have in my branding colors, I have the name of my website. Oh, and then I have a small, under the title, I have a small italic product review and comparison in smaller font and italic, so they know it's a product review and comparison, price comparison, and that's working great.
Okay, very cool. And just to rewind, so you said you had a decent amount of content when you first started on Pinterest. So how many posts did you have?
I was up to the 540 mark.
Oh, okay. So
before I started.
How did you decide what to create pins for?
I did it for everything.
Everything. So just 100%. And then did you put everything into rotation? And I understand Tailwind has some intelligence so you could repin the good stuff, right?
Yes. I pinned directly to my boards first. So I'd do about 10 a day, 10 to 20 a day. I might do 10 in the morning, 10 at night, until I got all my pins on there. Then I started rotating them through Tailwind and pinning them to relevant boards and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But I pin directly first.
Okay.
Don't use Tailwind to start the pin. Use it to pin from Pinterest.
Okay. And at this point, we're getting to area, which I don't even know what you're talking about, but I understand. So you create
your eyes are glassing over.
So you create your own. I could care less about Pinterest, but I think I'm going to get into it since I've heard about it so much. And I'm like, you know what? There's probably an affiliate program for Tailwind, right? So I'll check it out. You create your own boards. You created 22 of them. You populated each of those boards with all of your 530 posts. And then after that, you started pinning other stuff into your boards also?
Not into my own personal boards that have my products. I created relevant boards, pinned other products plus my products into those boards.
Okay.
Other people's pins plus mine.
Gotcha. So the 22, we'll struggle through this together. So the 22 boards you filled with your own stuff, and then you created other boards.
Yes.
In which you pinned other people's stuff as well as yours.
Yeah. For instance, if you had,
let's use fruits. Let's use fruits like pears and apples and bananas.
Okay. So let's say you have pears, apples, and bananas boards. Then you could have a tree horticulture board. You could pin your articles from pears, apples, and bananas. I don't know if bananas come. Yeah, bananas come from trees. Yeah. And also, maples and that other people are doing, plus tree care and pesticide or pruning or whatever you do into that board. You could then have, say, a fruit recipes board. where, make fruit salad and how to make apple pie and different things. And you can do your apple and your fruit into that one as well. Honestly, if you're thinking about your target audience and what they're going to use stuff for and what they're going to do around the stuff, you can have an endless amount of boards.
Okay. And do you keep creating new boards, or are you you're happy with where it's at right now?
I'm happy where it's at right now. When I started doing Tailwind more, I found I was lacking in some categories, and I can just tell you these categories because they have nothing to do with, they have to do with my audience, but not with my site. There's a lot of clothing websites that use Pinterest. So I did a clothing deals. I'm never going to review a piece of clothing, but I'll do clothing deals. I have electronics. That's a broad. And I have some of my stuff in that and a lot of other people's stuff. I have jewelry and home crafts and food tips. These are all things that would be around some of my products.
So like when you start pinning other people's stuff, do they see that you pinned it and then they'll check out your stuff potentially?
At times. And times they'll follow you. And the good thing about Pinterest, it doesn't matter if you have one follower or 100,000 followers. Honestly, Pinterest doesn't use that anymore in their search rankings, which is what you want, is their search rankings.
Okay, cool. Because I remember there was a stretch where I recall, it was a very big deal to have so many followers, but I guess they've changed up their algorithm a bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's based on the relevancy of the pin and people's reaction to it.
Okay. Interesting. Very good. And like I said, I'll have to get into it now that I've heard Tailwind like multiple times already in the last couple of days.
The nice thing about Pinterest is actually it converts better than Google traffic. It is not a lot better, but it's a couple percentage points higher than Google traffic.
Okay. And this is tying it all back together. Thanks, Duke. So basically you were keeping good track with the Google Tag Manager. So you saw that at least more people were clicking over to Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't track it past that. I look at it as I've done my job if I've gotten somebody to click to Amazon.
But what we can take away, right? So let's say someone hasn't started a site yet. They start a site, they get maybe 30 pieces of content on there pretty quickly. Maybe they need to get more on there, but they get some content published. They can start pinning stuff. They can start that activity and potentially get traffic, long before they're going to get much traffic from Google.
Exactly. In my head, that was one of the things I was trying to figure out is if I was going, because I got some guys that want me to teach this stuff to them. I'm not pastoring a church right now, but old members of my last church, and they want me to teach this stuff. How do I get them to get some traffic even sooner than the 6-month mark or Ricky and Jim's 8-month mark or whatever? How do you get it? And Pinterest is the way you can get quicker traffic.
Yep. And the Christy, like I was talking about earlier, who lives in town, her site, she started it in like mid-October. She's getting, some traffic from Google, but she's been able to really take advantage of like Pinterest traffic, primarily through just smart outreach and being active on Pinterest. So she has like quite a bit more traffic than most people would have in, 3 months time because she's like taking advantage of Pinterest. Like,
right.
It's not going viral, but it's like big for a brand new site because again, outreach, smart connections, and like being active and trying. So interesting. Okay. So one final thing. So you were at very little traffic. You started with Pinterest. You got up to about 100 visitors from Pinterest per day. Like what was the buildup like? Like how long did it take for it to start working?
It took about a month to start seeing a difference. And it was, 25 or so. And it kind of jumped. It was 25 or so. Then, next week it was 35. And then the next week it was 50. And kind of that,
hockey stick.
Hockey stick, yes.
Gotcha.
Type thing.
Yeah, and I have heard a couple people mention there seems to be like a sandbox period for Pinterest where they, you have to earn your credibility before they start, pushing your stuff a little bit more. So So maybe that month or so.
Could have been.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool. So from a link building standpoint, can you tell us a little bit about what you've done there?
On the big site, I used a couple services to acquire some guest posts. I did 20 guest posts to the large site. I also used another guy I know who got me 10 newspaper, local newspaper links as well. And other than that, I basically did Pinterest is the only social network I ever see in Google Analytics. Okay. Or not analytics, Google Search Console. At least a portion of your Pinterest links in Search Console. So That's all I did. And the little site, I didn't do a darn thing. In fact, I didn't really do much to it at all for almost the entire year. I'm doing stuff to it now, but I didn't do stuff to it almost the entire year. Just let it cruise along because I was bound and determined I was going to make that large site pay. I wasn't going to lose my money.
Right. Interesting. So for the smaller site, basically no link building at all, right?
No.
Okay. No. And then is that keyword golden ratio based, or is it something else?
Probably 30% keyword golden ratio based. The rest was just keyword research. I started off using Keyword Finder. I don't use it anymore. Keyword Finder works fine for informational articles. I think it fails some with buyers' keywords. Its keyword competition tool metrics doesn't work as well.
Okay, cool.
So that's what I did. Some of them were pillar posts. I got a couple really huge pillar posts and some best lists and not a lot of product reviews, but that's changing. So
it sounds like since you did a lot of link building for the larger site, and then you haven't been doing as much and you're making more money on the smaller site. So it sounds like maybe you're not that interested in doing link building. Is that accurate?
I've never been interested in it. And at this point, I'm just not seeing the return on it. There was a time when I used to be able to build links and rank. Mm-hmm. You would see movement. I haven't seen any movement. And so I'm looking at it from a business standpoint. And I can spend $1,000 link building, or I can spend $1,000 on content. Well, $1,000 of content is going to make me more money than the $1,000 of link building. That's just the way I've seen it at this point. If somebody can show me different, I'd love it, but I can't figure it out.
Right. Well, then the other thing is basically whatever you want someone to show you, there's someone who's selling you something who could show you something that'll make you want to buy whatever they're selling. So I totally understand what you're saying. And I think, for a lot of people, the link building portion, like you said, you've never been interested in link building. That's not as fun. If you find it fun, like you're in a rare group, a lot of my friends, they do enjoy the link building part of it and just the outreach part of it and blah, blah, blah. My observations anecdotally over the last, year, 18 months or something is like the links take a while to kick in. And it's like you have to be consistently getting links over 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. And then like the links don't kick in all the way, maybe for a year. So it's like you do all this stuff and it's hard to tell, probably because, people like you and I in the past, we built a lot of links and we would see things happen. We would adjust the anchor text. We would add more links and you could just see what worked. And then you could abuse the system where with a long enough timeline, it takes the ROI out of it so that you're left to do something, hopefully that makes the internet a better place versus like, building links that are garbage. So yeah, I think there's a lot of randomness into it and links still help, of course, but it's like, it's hard to tell like what links are helping. And then there's other factors too, right? I think maybe, right? Don't necessarily do this, Duke, but I'm thinking the larger site, maybe it was so competitive that the links that you got were maybe like just a drop in a sea of many other, sites that had tons of links, where like your smaller niche, like you're ranking without links. Like what if you had a couple links to a couple pages that needed it? I don't know. That could be interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything that, interesting going on that that I didn't ask about? That
Not really, other than I'm basically doing this full time now. We were already set up fairly well. We, done Dave Ramsey's course, my wife's really good with saving money and not going in debt and all that stuff. So we're debt free. So we're able to do this full time now. So it was 18 months to get to the point. Other than that, I don't know. I think we're doing good. It's fun to be in it and doing it. I've been blogging since 2011, and I have worked at numerous different ways of trying to monetize my efforts on the internet until I came across you and Human Proof Designs and Authority Hacker. I had not cracked the code yet of how to do it. My biggest website, which is my blog, it's probably at 50,000 visitors a month, but it only makes $450 a month on advertising.
Right.
So the return on investment with the niche sites, it's been good for me. It's been a life changer for me.
Nice. Very good. Well, that's cool. That's good to hear overall. And the podcast, which we're going to put this both on, if you're watching this, it's on the podcast too. And then for people that are listening to the podcast, we're putting it on the YouTube channel. So there's some cross-pollination, but we have the luxury of covering and talking about whatever we want. So the financial independence could be cool for us to talk about sometime in the future, Duke. Yeah. So if people are interested, please let us know. My wife is really good with numbers too. So hopefully we'll be in the position you're in sometime soon. So just to close it up, for people that let's aim at people that maybe haven't started a site yet and they're thinking about it. So what advice would you give the budding entrepreneur interested in affiliate marketing?
The first thing I would do is get products out of your head. Don't go, I like fishing poles. Instead go, I really love to fish. How can I make a website that is great about fishing? Or golfing, canoeing, whatever it is you're into, or something you'd be interested in. A product focus just becomes much more difficult to compete and to monetize or get a good return on investment. Secondly, quit worrying about getting it all right. Instead, just do it. I learned huge valuable lessons in my second site, the large site, that I'm now applying to the first site that's going to take it to the next level. Start doing it. You learn by doing. You can't learn by watching another video. You got to start putting it to practice. And that's what I love about Jim and Ricky. I disagree with a lot of what they say, to be very honest, but I love that they're encouragers that encourage people to get in there and do it. And that's why they're successful. So,
yep. Well said. So to quickly summarize, take action. You're going to make mistakes. You could fix it later. And that's the core piece, right? As long as you're doing something, moving a little bit forward, you're going to figure it out.
Yeah. My first blog in 2011 was a blogger blog, and it was ugly.
It's a mess. Yeah. I remember those. Ugly. Yeah, I think I had one of those too. That's funny. All right. Yeah. Well, Duke, thanks again. It's been a pleasure catching up. And we'll maybe get something else out on the calendar sometime soon. So have a great day, and really appreciate it.
Okay. Take care.
All right. Thanks a lot, Duke. Really appreciate you taking the time out, and we'll see you around the channel. Hey, what's going on? It's Doug Cunnington here from Niche Site Project. In this episode, we are talking to Christy. And Christy is making about $400 per month as of April 2019. And this is part of the series where, well, at least when I'm recording it right now, I'm trying to share stories that are very recent, success stories of beginners, people that are experienced, and so on. But the point is, I want to give examples of people who are making Amazon affiliate sites work right now. Christy is a member of 5-Figure Niche Site, my premium course. However, you could learn a lot of stuff just from all my free material, so don't feel like you have to enroll in the course. Now, this specific interview was recorded a few months ago when Christy was about 3 months in, about 3.5 months into her project, right? So now we're a few months past that, and at the time of the recording, I believe she was making about $100 a month, and it's slowly been growing. We talk about a few things here, and you'll notice this was actually recorded in my house, in my old house in Bozeman. So it's been a couple months back when I was living in Bozeman. But the point is, we talk about a few things here, a couple things to think about. One is Pinterest traffic. So Christy enjoys Pinterest. It's very relevant for her specific industry. So Pinterest was like one of the main sources of traffic in the beginning. And thankfully, right now, she's able to get a lot of traffic, actually the majority of her traffic from Google, just organic search. Two other interesting things, we go on tangents talking about Montana and like lifestyle and like having a corporate job versus working for yourself, because Christy also runs a marketing agency, a fairly high-end marketing agency. So she's not working with like affiliate marketers or individuals. She's working with corporations and helps them with marketing. Anyway, the point is she runs her own business already, but she wants to move into something where there's less day-to-day activity, where she's not delivering a service and dealing directly with clients on a day-to-day basis, right? Just to get a little more free time. So anyway, thanks again to Christy for joining me. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the comments and that sort of thing. And if you want to see more from Christy, let me know. It'd be cool to get an update, but it's always nice to hear from the audience, just saying like, hey, I want to get an update from Christy and here are the questions I have. So without further ado, let's get to the interview. Welcome.
Thanks.
All right, I'm sitting here with Christy, who's a student in Five Figure Niche Site, and thanks for joining me today. We happen to live both in Bozeman, so we get together every once in a while and just chat. So we're chatting today. How are you?
Doing pretty well. It's the middle of our very, very long winter, so.
But it's been like surprisingly warm.
Okay. Yeah, my tolerance is increased.
Yeah, and it's like I usually have like chains on my truck, you know?
Yeah.
And oh yeah, so you drove a truck.
I drove my truck too. Yeah.
Nice. It's 4-wheel drive though, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
you could actually get around. So mine's 2-wheel drive. So I have to put in like sandbags, which you maybe have to do also. Nope. But then I have to put chains because basically it's like undrivable once it gets a little
mine's kind of a beast. Not to truck compare, but
yeah. Well, mine's from the south, so we didn't
true. Mine's from Canada. So
it's built for this.
It's built tough, yeah.
Okay, so most people don't know who you are. Mm-hmm. So can you just give us a little intro?
Yeah. So I moved here to Bozeman probably 3 years ago by now. I run a creative agency as my full-time gig and started doing this on the side after that. And that's how we met, of course. But for the most part, I'm kind of a marketer by trade and a writer, and we can talk about that a little bit later, but just kind of trying this out on the side.
Cool. So you have your own agency?
I do. Yep. So I've been running my own creative marketing agency for about 4 years, and it's all virtual though. So everyone works from home, and that's how I was able to move out here. So
super cool. And it sounds like we moved here like around the same time. So around 2015.
I think so. Yeah. Okay. And I imagine we moved here kind of for some of the same reasons.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so what was the big draw for you?
Well, for me, it was just, I'd been coming out on vacation for a while and just wanted a different lifestyle. I'd been doing the corporate gig for a decade at the same tech company, and that was great and got a lot of experience. But just, at that time in my life, wanted to do something different and have some flexibility and be somewhere beautiful. And
right.
I feel like we were kind of on the same page about that one.
Yeah. But well, you must ski and do all the winter activities, right?
Doug, I don't do any of those activities.
Right.
No.
So I don't like, we don't do any of that either.
Yeah.
So it's slightly embarrassing to have to tell people, but it's like, hey, you know what? Like
I found it really comforting when neither of us were going to go hiking. Like to me, that was like, okay, we can be friends because he's not going to make me go hiking. So it was a big moment for me.
Yeah. Although I like hiking every now and then, but it's, So anyway, not in the winter so much. That's snowshoeing. So, okay. So you had a corporate career. Can you tell us a little bit about like what you did back there?
Yeah. So I started right out of college. I went to school for marketing. And so I got myself a marketing job through what was at the time like a 2-year entrepreneurial fellowship. So they put you with a startup company. So you got to kind of have the startup experience and then stay on if you wanted to as it grew. And I ended up staying for 10 years. So definitely went from startup to full corporate and being actually acquired. So did that whole journey. And while I was there, I did just kind of all the things, which is the story of my life. But did a lot of writing. So I've always been a writer. Managed a design team. I did sales support. I did events. And then the last couple of years, I did internal marketing. So anything that was for employees.
Nice.
So kind of ran the gamut.
Cool. And then it sounds like you managed a decent number of people along the way.
Yep. Did some management. It was never, the thing that I loved the most. I loved the people, but, I think my favorite jobs were just making new things and doing project-based work. And
right.
I did get to manage a lot of agencies, freelancers. So that has turned out to be really key for me because that's what I do now. So,
okay, cool. And I'm going to just skip ahead. We'll come back to more stories and everything. But you are a student in the 5-figure niche site course, and you have a site, and we're going to talk about some of those details. So just letting everyone know, we're going to dig in. So couple interesting things, which again, we're going to meander around this whole conversation. So your site is a few months old. Can you give us some of the stats as far as traffic, number of posts, some details?
Yeah. So I started the site. I took a week off of work to start it, actually, over my birthday. Happy birthday. The first week of October. So it's been going for 3.5 months-ish. I'll have, I think, 30 posts by the end of the month. Some of them are guest posts. Some of them are posts that I've written. Current site traffic, last I looked yesterday, was around 3,500 a month visits. A lot of that is from social traffic. So I'm doing a lot on Pinterest just because my niche is pretty visual. So trying to take advantage of that. And then my other traffic sources are obviously, more so organic Google. But a lot of Pinterest traffic. And then, let's see, other things that so KGR, I guess we should talk about too. So all of my posts are KGR posts with the exception of like a couple of bigger kind of pillar posts. So definitely trying to, got that from the site and makes a lot of sense to me. We might come back to KGR later on why that makes a difference, but trying to kind of follow the best practices with all of my posts.
How long are sorry to interrupt. Yeah. How long are the posts?
Well, that's what I was going to say. So as a writer, it's hard to write tiny posts. So I think a lot of people are intimidated by trying to get to at least 1,500 words, which is where you should be for Google to want to, rank your copy. For me, most of my posts are usually above 3,000 words. So trying to do really meaty content for everything.
Right.
So yeah, it takes a long time. So.
And you do a lot of the writing yourself, right?
I do a lot of the writing myself because my niche is something that I'm like personally passionate about and educated in. So I can do that. I'm also starting to get into more guest posting in kind of a interesting way that we can talk about.
Okay.
But yeah, so I would say probably 2/3 content mine for now and 1/3 probably guests.
Okay. And then is it accurate? Like if you have because you have some people writing, like a couple of people writing things for you, right? But even then you edit it, you can't keep your hands off it, right? I can't. Yeah. So I edit everything. I put it all into WordPress. I'm familiar with WordPress just because of the agency that I run. So I can also do a lot of the tech side myself, a lot of the site branding, all of that I can do myself, which is fun. Right. For me, it's just one big fun project to work on. So that's what I like. Cool. And teasing you, of course, but the point is the content's good. So even if you have it written by a qualified person or whatever, you still get in there and make sure it's what you want to say and the voice is proper. That is it's a trend that I hear from several people that have been able to get a decent amount of traffic in a short time. And Like
Right.
they stay on top of the content and make sure it's congruent and
Right.
written well.
Well, and for me, it's a little bit, a lot of the times I think for niche sites, you don't expect people to come back, right? You expect them to Google, find an article, take action on it, and that's it. What I'm trying to build is a little bit more on the authority side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to kind of build more of a community around it and have it be a consistent place that people can come back to. So I think having content that is well written and feels like it's from the same brand, the same site is going to be important, 2 years from now. So,
Gotcha. All right. So for the social traffic, is the majority of it coming from Pinterest?
yeah. So Pinterest has been a learning curve for me. It's not something that I actually do for my current business. So that's all new. But the big turning point, I think, for me was realizing that Pinterest is a search engine, which I just had never thought about. So as opposed to, like an Instagram, that's great for just kind of building your general brand if you want to. But Pinterest is really, you can target keywords just like you can with Google. So once I realized that, I was like, I should be there.
Right.
I should be there. My niche is, image centric. So yeah, this means I can target the same kind of keywords I am with the content.
Gotcha. And you know what? Everyone, not everyone, people just keep telling me over and over again, it's a search engine, it's not social. And I'm like, yeah, I guess so. And it's funny, I think it must have been, it was shortly after I moved here. So a few years ago, I was like, I need to get going on some Pinterest. And then like most things, it's like,
right.
I didn't do it. And now it's like, if I would have like put time in. But I think the thing that concerns me that I've heard, you can tell me if it's accurate or not. In like social channels, Pinterest may fall into this category.
Yep.
You have to remain active, right? So,
right.
So if you did a bunch of stuff for 3 months and then you stopped, you would potentially like plateau, then decline. Okay.
Yep. So one of the things I had to do kind of in a hurry was I decided to set up, well, we're both project managers, so we kind of like systems and processes. So I got onto Tailwind, which is a scheduling app for social, and it does Instagram and Pinterest, which I was like, great, those are the two that I need. That's perfect. So I now try to schedule basically a month in advance of social posts on Pinterest and Instagram. But Pinterest more so because then I can do all the keyword research at once, because the keywords are a little different on Pinterest. So just because you targeted one on Google, you have to kind of do some manual checking on Pinterest and see what people are searching for on there. So, but I try to do it all together as much as I can and then set it and forget it for a month.
Cool. And can you do more than a month at a time?
You can.
Okay. Is there like a limit or?
There's not. It's just as much as I can get to on a Friday when I dedicate time to this. So.
And is it something like once you, let's say you get the couple months, like you have a couple months of history or whatever, can you just like, can you reuse it? That's what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah. So Tailwind is cool because it actually has these things called smart loops. So you can set up a smart loop of your highest performing pins and it can repin them at the optimized times for your audience. So the longer you use it and the more pins you have, the more data gathers, obviously. And then you can set up some of these smart loops to kind of reactivate posts that you've already done from, say, 2 years ago.
Okay.
If it's a good, article that's performing well, you can add it and say, hey, let's get this out there more. So.
Gotcha. How much does Tailwind cost?
I want to say it was maybe like $10 a month. Don't quote me on that, but it was not astronomical.
Okay.
So it was worth it to me not to have to manually go in and do that because that was just taking up a ton of time.
Right. And then do you have to write like some little, I don't know anything about Pinterest, little description about it? And then,
Yep. Okay. And you can do hashtags and keywords and all of that. The other cool thing I learned about Pinterest was that Pinterest can actually read the text on your images. So using keyword-rich text within the image itself is actually good, which things like Instagram doesn't do that. So
interesting. Okay, so I learned a lot. Maybe I need to get my act together on.
As long as you consolidate it. If you try to do it all manually, it's too much of a time suck.
Right. And I think and let me let me back up again. So on how much traffic like per day are you getting from Pinterest? Do you have like a handle?
I feel like my Pinterest traffic in general was about 75% of what I'm getting. If
Okay.
I'm doing 3,500 visits a month, I will let you do that math.
Okay, so that's about 100 a day, so about 75.
Probably.
Okay. All
And
right.
I mean, I just started, so the site was started in October. I just started Pinterest probably 3 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
So that's
It's
not
like-
been running for 3 months.
Oh,
That's
wow,
just immediately.
Okay. And I think, yeah, that's pretty impressive because I've been working with another person that started their site around the same time. They're getting, 10 or 15 visitors a day on a good day from Google. And and you're getting that as well. I mean, you're getting more than that.
Well,
right?
and
You're
this
getting
is
about
something
twice
that, we chatted about early on when I started doing the social stuff because, the conversion rate is usually lower on social, I think. But, one of my questions was, is this still valuable? So I don't know if you want to talk about a little about that, but that was something that I really wondered about because I was like, okay, so it's working, it's driving traffic, but like, is it good traffic? Does Google like that?
Yeah. So, let's talk about it now. I think any traffic is probably going to be good, assuming they're like there for the right reason. Like they're interested in the topic. What the traffic you don't want is like someone is, trying to learn about dogs. Georgie, I'm looking at Georgie right now. Someone's trying to learn about dogs, and then they end up on the cat side. That's that's wrong. That's
that is wrong on so many levels.
So if they are interested in dogs, they end up, so that's good. And early on with your site, like, I mean, you're not going to get much traffic. So if you can get traffic from wherever, that's great. Now, the anecdotal evidence, a couple of posts that I've had went viral on Pinterest and their rankings went up. Now, caveat is I was also link building and doing other stuff, and it was a really good piece of content. So everything works together, I think. And I believe, if you have traffic coming from wherever the source is, right? Whatever social media, even if it's like a blog comment, like if it's a no follow link and traffic's coming through it, Google's like, oh, like people are going to that content. That seems interesting. So.
Well, and same anecdotal, but I did notice that, since the site's been up for 3 months, I've only been doing Pinterest for maybe 3 weeks. But my average page ranking is now at about 30, 31. Whereas before that, it was probably, 100 and then 75. So like, I feel like that's really picked up.
Cool.
Obviously some of that is it's another month old, which is great. But I think that probably the social has only helped kind of make it more legitimate in Google's eyes. So it's one thing I've noticed that was good.
Okay, cool. And I noticed for one of my sites, it gets a decent amount of traffic, I would say. And there's like some traffic coming from Pinterest, like naturally. I think at one point I was like, let's at least get some Pinterest type images in there. So I think some people are naturally finding
people
it.
Just sharing it.
So I think if I actually, so we'll talk after this, maybe you could help me out and we could figure out how to make it work for my site. Cause I imagine I could probably get, there's just a shitload of content that I have. And a lot of it does rank well. The content's good enough. So I imagine could probably get a few hundred visitors a day.
Well,
maybe.
and I think the key is to do it for the right articles. If you have a ton, right? For me, with 30 posts, I can do Pinterest for all of them. No big deal. If you have a site that's years old and you have hundreds of posts, Pinterest is great for like the lists. So 10 best whatevers, 5 things you never, that kind of stuff is really big on Pinterest. So, it's definitely somewhere that like product focused posts are good, and posts that are just kind of those list posts do pretty well. So
interesting. Okay, cool. I learned a lot there. So that was good. So let's shift gears abruptly and transition it back to the agency. So you had the corporate gig. Did you quit, or you were like, hey?
Well, we got acquired.
Okay.
And then I waited about a year and I did my own thing on the side for a year, basically to make sure I wouldn't starve to death. So I kind of tested the concept for a year. Does that sound familiar? And so I had about a year overlap, and then I decided that I wanted to move here because I've been coming out on vacation, and I threw out a little, would I be able to work from home in the middle of Montana? And they obviously don't have an office here, so they were like, yeah. And I was like, great, okay, that's fine. By that point, I'd kind of already committed in my mind to moving. So
yeah, that is remarkably similar. So my story is a little bit different, but my wife and I were like, I guess people call it slow travel. I don't know. I heard someone say it, and then I picked it up.
Slow travel with Brody.
Yep, that's right. So we ended up like taking road trips.
Get those birds, Georgie.
Yeah, Georgie is going after some magpies over there.
Get them.
Get them. Our windowsill is like all scratched up over there. Easy girl. And she hits it with her paw like a hand.
She's very intense about it.
Yeah, she's nuts.
She's not messing around.
All right. So my wife and I were traveling, and we were like, if we're driving all the way to Montana from Atlanta, then we should stay for a while. So we stayed for 3 months. We sold our place before we left.
That's a kiss of death right there. You can't stay for 3 weeks and not want to move here. Right.
Yeah. And I mean, it was that summer, you probably remember, it was a very nice summer. And we were here in the summer. So there was a little snow in the mountains, but it was awesome.
Yeah, you were done for.
And the place we rented, like a townhouse, we could look out the window and see the mountains, which you can see the mountains.
It's 360 mountains, to be clear.
And you're from a place where the weather is a little cooler.
There are no mountains.
Yeah, there's no mountains, but at least you were acclimated. Like your blood is.
We had cold winters. Yeah.
But from Atlanta, we're like, hopefully we can make it. We made it through a winter, and it was.
And we don't sweeten our tea up here either, so you must have really struggled.
Well, I was never that big on sweet tea.
Yeah, good. That's why we're friends.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway. We ended up here, and my company wasn't so crazy about it either. I think you took a more like professional and rational approach to it, but I was a little more abrupt. I was a squeaky wheel at that point, anyway. So,
I think once you know that you want to make a transition, it's really hard to pretend you don't know that. So it's I think for a lot of niche site people as well, it's like once you know that you want a different kind of lifestyle. You can't unknow that.
Right.
So you kind of want to figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah.
So.
Totally.
I can relate.
So, and the reason why I wanted to talk about the agency more is like, that seems like an approach that a lot of people may take. They're like, as long as I'm working for myself, well, I don't care. I mean, you're calling the shots. Like you're the owner and you're the CEO and all this stuff. Right. So why are you trying to like transition from there?
Yeah.
Or are you trying? Because I put words in your mouth there.
Yeah.
So
I think for me, Georgie, get it. Get that bird.
You gotta chill.
Gotta get him. So for me, probably every 2 years at my old company, I would switch jobs internally because I didn't leave the company. But I like projects, right? And I like new stuff. And for me, after a couple of years, you're doing more management than you are, creative and things like that. And that's okay. That's kind of how it's supposed to work. But I really like having something new to dig my teeth into. And, I may keep the agency, right? I've built something that's really successful and I love the people and that's great. But, kind of the longer that I live here, the more I care about lifestyle and kind of quality of life. And like that was a huge leap for me of having a better quality life than I did for a long time when my life was my job.
Right.
But now like you're kind of always looking for the next step that you could take. So how could I get more balance in my life? How could I do more of the things that I like? While still not starving to death, obviously.
Right.
So it's a consideration.
Right.
So
yeah.
I think it'll be more just kind of shifting how that is. But for me, I want just something different to work on also. My brain kind of needs it.
Yeah. Totally understand, like to learn something new.
Just totally new.
And it's a good combination because you have like the writing background, you have really strong marketing background, project management, like you did the management. So you have like a wide range that it's kind of hard to put that together. Like if you were planning on doing that, you couldn't actually do it.
Well, I think like a few times after I met with you, I think I might have even written you like, here's kind of my why of why I'm doing this. And I had also written at home, because I'm a writer, and I think on the page, like reasons why this will work before I knew anything about it. Right. So for me, I needed to be like, you know what, like I have these pieces. I write, I do design, I'm comfortable on the web. You know, I can project manage, I'm self-motivated, like these kind of pieces. And they all seem to line up really well with running a niche site. So just made me feel a little bit better about the decision.
Good. Well, and how'd you find me?
Yeah. So that was weird. I mean, I think it's weird that you live in the same town I do in the middle of Montana. That's weird. But the first time I think I heard about you was my friend actually runs a podcast here in town, and she interviewed you. But it was probably a couple of months before that there was another niche site person that they interviewed. And I saved her podcast because I was like, I need to listen to this. I know I need to. I cannot right now.
Right.
Like I just was not in the right mind space to do it. So I was like, oh, that's great that you're making all that money and that's fantastic for you. And that's great. And right now I need to put out these fires and do the things.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until like a couple of months later that I listened to it and I was like, okay, that is super interesting. And then like the next week, your podcast came out with them and I was like, okay.
More
and then
interesting.
I assumed that you were a guest podcaster from somewhere else because that's what most of the people were. And then I looked into it and I was like, he lives right here. What are the chances?
Yeah.
So that was exciting.
And you can mention the podcast and the other people, by the way.
Oh, yeah. So it was called Beautifully Equipped. And it's run by a group of 3 ladies that are all entrepreneurial boss ladies here in Bozeman, which is awesome. So listen to them if you haven't already. They're great.
And I'm not 100% sure, but it's the demographic primarily is women.
Yep.
Somehow I talked my way into being a guest.
I know.
Which is
I don't know how you did it.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if they've interviewed any other males, but I maybe
rare.
Yeah. So they're not many.
Yeah.
So
you were an exception, Doug.
Yep. So great podcast. You should check it out.
Yep.
A lot of interesting stuff. And let's see. And who was the other affiliate marketer that you?
Yeah. So she runs the Making Sense of Sense website. So it's super different. It's all finance. So it wasn't something that like was a personal topic interest of mine. So I probably never would have found her. But her niche site kind of element was interesting. And that's what she was talking a lot about. And I looked and I just like, it was really interesting, I guess, to see her do that. Now, finance is totally different, obviously. But she built it up from nothing. And I really like to see stories like that where it feels like what you're doing, right? Because everybody's building something from nothing.
Right.
So it's nice not to be like, here are all the pretty pieces.
Right.
But to have someone be like, first couple of years, pretty tough.
Yeah. And it seems like it's not working.
It's real. So.
And I you know what? I haven't listened to her episode, but I need to check it out based on what you mentioned. Do you get into the financial independence like stuff at all? Or?
I really have never. What I liked about her that she does is she posts income reports every month, which is interesting, which actually inspired one of the things I'm going to be doing starting this month, which is posting monthly expense reports for my niche. So what I spend on that hobby, because a lot of people want to know, like, what does this cost? And no one really talks about it. Yeah. So for her, it was income because that's, personal finance related and that's great. For me, it's the cost of doing a hobby. So I'm just going to try it and be transparent about it and it's good for me to be minding those pennies anyway, a little bit
Right.
closer. So yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting. So let's see.
Well, and she has a class too. So she was the first one that I signed up for because I hadn't heard your podcast yet. And she runs a class called Making Sense of Affiliate Marketing. So that was the first one that I knew of. And then when your podcast came out, and I looked up your website, you had a class too, and I was down for that. So
Cool. So now that you're a few months in and you've published a decent amount of content, like what has been surprising, basically? What's different than you thought?
yeah, just the amount of time it takes I feel like it's always the case, right? Whatever you're starting, it takes more time than you think.
Yeah.
But I kind of went in thinking, hey, I'm a writer. I know the topic really well. This is going to be super fast. And then you realize that your personality stays the same. So if you're an A++, then you got to write 3,000 words every time, and it takes a long time, and you're doing research and all of that. So for me, I think it was just the time investment was a lot more than I thought. The flip side of that being, I'm really glad I picked a niche that I care about personally. Right. So I know that you can do it differently, right? You can just pick a topic and that's fine, especially if you're outsourcing most of the content. But I think if you're writing it yourself, you kind of got to care about it because otherwise it'll get old real quick. It's a lot of time.
Boring. Yeah. And then if you have, you're a writer, if you're interested in it, you can write this stuff. Great. But there's another pocket of folks that like they hire someone, they're not writers. Right. Maybe English is not their first language. They don't know the topic either. So they get back garbage and they don't know it. So I'll go and audit their site and then it just looks like a train wreck. It's just a mess.
Well, and the difference I think there for me at least, and we talked about this even the first time we met, was, I'm looking to build things that last. So like you always say, like if you want money right now, you should go get a job and have someone pay you.
Right.
But if you want to kind of build out a lifestyle and build out a different income stream, like that's going to take some time and you have to put in the work for a couple of years probably to see the return. And so for me, that's kind of how I'm approaching it, right? I don't want to throw a bunch of junk out there. I want to build a site that I care about and I'm proud of and that people want to return to as kind of an authority site. So
okay, cool.
Just a different focus, I guess.
And then are there some things that are exactly like how you thought it was going to be?
Yeah. I mean, I've built a lot of websites, so, I know what that takes. I know how to brand and create a logo and a tagline and things that I really love. So for me, that's kind of part of the motivation is you learn the pieces that you really like. And yeah, you shouldn't spend 40 hours on your template. Like, I know it's true. Like, don't do that. But if you can spend 10 hours on your brand because you love brand and you want to build something that you're super proud of and that motivates you every time you go on the site, then that's worth the 10 hours. So for me, it's kind of just knowing what those pieces are that every time I look at that element, I'm like, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I like it. So.
Yeah. There's something to, you could figure, what motivates you too, like us as individuals.
Right.
So, you got to take that into account. You don't want to work on something that you like really, really hate.
Right.
And if you can get energized and more pumped up about the project by spending more time on something.
Well, and there will be pieces that you don't like. So I feel like it's important to have at least some things that you routinely like about it, right? Because sometimes you're going to have to deal with tech or switch your hosting or whatever, right? And you're gonna be like, this is not why I started this.
Yeah, totally.
But it's just one of the things. So
yeah. All right, we're gonna take a quick break here, and let's see if I can pause this. All right, and we're back. We just refreshed our tea.
Yep.
And we were looking at pictures of I guess birds of prey, raptors. Yep. So we were talking about like bald eagles and ospreys and other large birds. This place is the coolest. So like do you remember like the first couple of times you saw eagles out in the wild?
Yeah. I think I saw one on my first trip here even. Because I came out originally for yoga retreats of all things. So I was driving out like an hour east of here. And there was one that came down on the road, like on the highway, and grabbed something. And I was just like, what? What is happening? This place is ridiculous.
They're just around. Yeah.
It was, yeah. You always see something different here.
It's crazy. And I remember it was just a couple weeks ago, we were driving over to Missoula.
Oh, huh.
And I guess you kind of go up on a plateau or something. Because you could tell it like got much colder up there. It dropped by like maybe 15
The terrain
degrees.
changes a lot on the way to Missoula.
Very interesting.
Strange.
And like it looked like a Christmas scene, right? And it was actually in December. But all the trees were like covered with a frost of ice or whatever. And there was that stretch, that plateau. We saw like 10 eagles in each direction. It was super cool. They're huge. You can see their
huge. They're
bald
huge.
heads it's a good
Did
look.
It make
the
you
bald
feel
eagle.
at home? Yeah, I thought so.
So it was pretty cool. All right, getting back into it, we were just talking about like outreach and the early days with your site. A lot of times, like you're not going to get a lot of traffic from Google. And I mentioned a few ways to do outreach: blog commenting, just emailing people, trying to guest post, all that stuff. But because you're a good marketer and you think you have a different frame than a lot of people would use to think about outreach. So you came up with some cool ideas that I've never heard of. Do you want to tell us about a couple?
Yeah. Well, the one thing I did early on was, when I was following your course, I did kind of the content section first. And then I went and did my content. And then I waited to listen to the outreach portion until I was like ready to do that, because I know if I put it in my brain, that's all I'm going to want to do. So I waited until I had like a good start on the content. And then you had always said like get through kind of a content sprint and then stop and do outreach and then do another content sprint and then stop and do outreach. So I was like, this seems like a good time. But like what I had noticed in my niche was that there's a lot of, since I'm trying to build more of an authority site because I care about the topic and, it's also what I'm interested in. A lot of the people in my niche are huge on YouTube. I have not started a vlog yet, maybe in the future, kind of freaks me out. But there's a lot of vloggers in my niche that are really, really good that I've personally followed for years. So some of the outreach that I wanted to do was actually to vloggers, because often they don't have websites. They don't have places that they can also write. So they don't necessarily have an outlet for that. And sometimes they have more that they want to talk about than what they're able to cover on a vlog. So the very first outreach that I did was actually to a really big vlogger that I had followed for years, and got her to come on and do 10 vlogs about topics that she cares about, I care about, that actually add value to the site. So for me, I would rather go and do kind of some of those one-off contacts than do, a bunch of blog contenting, which does work. But what I kind of want is like the long-term relationships, because it's a topic we both care about and it gives them a valuable space to share other thoughts. So I'm doing a lot more outreach with vloggers, which led me to also then create kind of like a media guide, because that's something that I follow personally for my niche. I created kind of like a guide to the best vloggers to follow, and now I'm doing the best podcasters to follow. And then just reaching out to those folks and telling them, the truth of, hey, I've been following you for years and your content has been super helpful to me. So I featured you here, and then asking some of them if they want to contribute, if they don't have a place to kind of blog and share their thoughts, then that's a good spot for them. So
nice. I really like the fact that you approached a vlogger. And how many like subscribers? Just bought like tens of thousands of subscribers, right?
Like probably 100,000 overall their channels.
Okay. So like when you think about that, it's like, why did she talk to you? Do you think it was your approach? Did you know her beforehand? Like, how did you like,
I mean, I didn't know her personally, but the thing is, I'm not really reaching out to anyone that I haven't personally followed. So when I write someone, it's super authentic because I actually do follow their journey. I know about what they're doing. I know about, kind of where they are in their journey. So for me, it's a little easier to reach out because I'm not just asking for things. In fact, sometimes I'm not asking for anything, right? I'm just saying, hey, I love what you're doing and I featured you here, right? And if you have kind of a good rapport when we reply, then awesome. Cool. You know, but for me, it's you just can't reach out to people and be like, hey, here's what I need from you.
Right.
Yeah, no one wants that email.
And I think, well, I'm in.
You probably get those emails and you don't want them.
Right. I was going to say in the marketing space, like everything gets abused pretty badly. But like if you're in a space where maybe there's not a lot of people, right? Well, let's just say, for example, it was a very crowded niche on the blog side, and a lot of people were sending emails, which
pretty crowded.
But then to go to the different channel, like far fewer people, although there's still a lot of people that contact people with YouTube channels, because I get a ton of emails also from that. But it's fewer. The asks are different. So if you're, a lot of times the pitch may be like, hey, do you want to review? So I'm a bald male and I've gotten like pitches for like makeup and stuff. And I'm like, do you realize the demographics like completely
do they know that you
wrong?
usually wear hats? The fact that you're not wearing a hat right now is super weird.
And it's like, I mean, and I think I even replied back. I'm like, this is like not a good match at all, right? Because I was just curious, like, how did that happen? How did that happen? And they're like, we just want to get the word out. And I was like,
so I had someone reach out to me on Instagram, which is the first time, because my Instagram channel is still super small. Like I just started it and I'm just building it up because I want it to be authentic, and that just takes longer. But someone reached out with what seemed like maybe unauthentic, like, hey, we want to partner with you on this whatever product. So I just reached out a little bit, and you could tell like right away, like you just blanket sent this to probably 100 accounts. Like, yeah, I'm not going to buy your thing and then talk about it. That's just not a good ask, right?
No.
So like I would much rather reach out to someone and be like, here's what I love about your story. I've been following you for a long time. Here's something of value that I wanted to do to promote what you're doing, right? And that's the biggest thing.
Right.
So that's worked for me so far.
And similar.
Because it feels better to me. So.
And it actually is helping the other person and all that stuff. So, and I was able to, for Niche Site Project in a marketing sense, I reached out to an Instagrammer that I think she has something like 75,000 followers in the business, like marketing space. And I sent her a cold email, right? And she was like, sure, I'll do Elise Dharma. So she's on the channel. She was a digital nomad, blah, blah, blah. She'll actually be on another one of the podcast episodes. But the point is, like, even while we were talking in the interview, she was like, the cold email you sent me was great, which we could share that at some point, and I'll put a link in the show notes and everything. But it was like an authentic thing. It was clear.
Because you can't, those people spent years of blood, sweat, and tears building up what they have, and you can't just say, hey, I want to borrow everything that you built. Like, this is clearly for me. Even if I never got any traffic from them, like, I want their voice on the site.
Right.
Priority one. So.
Yeah. And then like, as you like work your way up, then you can use the social proof to get other people on. So you've been able to like parlay that. Is that the right? Parlay it up.
And just, because if one person creates quality content, then that gives you a good opportunity to go to someone else and say, hey, they're really enjoying this experience. Do you also want to share, something that you're interested in? Because so far, every one of the people that I reached out to have been thanking me for the opportunity. And they one of them blogged about how much she's enjoying doing it. And I was like, that's what I want. Like, if it's not a good experience for you as well, then you shouldn't be doing it, right? Like, I need to be a good quote unquote manager that, you being happy and enjoying it is important to me. So,
yeah, cool. And that's, again, it's like important to like make it enjoyable. Then you get the social proof, and then more like they'll come back and they'll talk with you more. And it's a good cycle. And then I mean, you can at that point ask them, right? Is there anyone you think I should talk to that are your peers? And then you get a warm intro, like.
Well, and because it's, the kind of niche where if you have something you're interested in and it's, there's a big presence on social in your niche, and people want to share and they want to help each other. And that's just a nice niche to be in.
Okay. Are there any other areas, like in the outreach zone where you're like, hey, this is sort of something I came up with on my own?
Well, I had listened to, I think it was Dave that you had interviewed when I was watching some of the early YouTube videos. And I heard just a little mention of like a scholarship program or something. And I didn't honestly know what that was that he was talking about at the time. So in my mind, when I was thinking about outreach, I was like, oh, well, like colleges. Yeah. Like there's a lot of college kids involved in this niche. So maybe they would like to share what they're doing and their experience. So I got together like a list of probably about 50 colleges. And instead of doing like a traditional scholarship, I did more of an outreach of, hey, do you want to nominate someone who would be good for a profile? Because again, like that's just the kind of, demographic that wants to share on social, like sharing on social, like wants to have a place to express what they're doing. And that's good quality content that people want to read about. I would want to read about it. So reaching out currently to about 50 schools and trying to get, I would say I would be happy if there were at least like 10 profiles probably at the end. And then just offering like a couple $100 of kind of like fun spending cash, not an official scholarship. But then the other thing that I want to do, hopefully, is if some of those people reply and I get like good writing from them, then that's someone in a niche that I could have potentially do more guest posts. Right. So I'm also kind of just keeping an eye out for, okay, who are good writers that I could trust with content. So
cool.
2 birds, 1 stone, maybe.
So a couple things to point out, because I'm sure some people are like yelling at their screen or headphones. So I think it was Dave Fox for the interview that you watched. And he did like a scholarship program, outreach program, which I don't recommend at this point in time. And that's not what you were talking about. But that was one of those things that was abused. So basically someone would set up a scholarship on their site. These used to be like valid and real. And then they would reach out to hundreds or thousands of schools to be listed on their scholarship
to try to get like the EDU links or something.
Yep, to get EDU links, which you can readily do. I think you could probably still pull it off. But if you go take a look at some of those pages, they're filled with like weird scholarships. So I think if you do it and you pay it out and all that stuff, it's fine. At this
but if
point,
everyone's doing it,
it lower. And in fact, there was a like series of like, I guess, manual penalties from Google and from the spam team. And a bunch of sites that had those kind of links were impacted. There were other things. It's unclear exactly what it was, but it seemed like a lot of those sites, the word on the street was from the scholarship program area. So you're not talking about that. You're getting like you're getting input from like the
I mean, it's like a 3-phase process to get to a profile. So
in the profile wouldn't necessarily get a link back, but the person may share it on social, and the people on whoever is associated with the
and it like ties into the core of my niche and like what my site is about within the niche, which helps. But I think what you just find is doing a kind of a level up of outreach where it is really personal takes way longer. Right? Like I can't set up like a listserv of colleges and just blast something out. Like that was probably 2 weeks of finding the right contacts and narrowing down what schools. And like, that's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get to the point where someone might say yes. But again, the hope is that you're building something that you're going to really like in 5 years, 10 years. So.
And there was some second point that I was going to make, but I don't remember what it is. So. I don't know. Well, you were talking about hiring them to do some writing afterwards or something. Okay. Yeah. That's cool.
Just because, it's hard. One of the questions I think I had for you early on even was, what do you do when you just can't hire anyone to write your niche because you have to be an expert on it. So that's one of those things where you're like, well, how do I find those people?
Yeah.
So I haven't figured out that equation yet by any means. Like I'm still doing most of it myself because I want people who know it.
Right.
So that's where I'm just like, well, if I do this cool thing in outreach, then maybe I'll develop a relationship with someone that turns into a consistent writer. So you never know.
Good idea. Okay. So when I was thinking back when we first met, we went to some coffee shop and
your first time at the Daily.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The Daily Coffee Bar over there. And you had
pastries. Yes, I did.
Yeah, you had pastries.
I did have pastries.
And I can't remember. I think I already ate that morning or something, even though you were like, the pastries are really good. I try and stay away from sweets because basically I'll like eat the whole.
No, don't stay away. It's not. No.
So you showed up with some crazy list of questions, right? Like you printed out.
I did.
Like you sent me an email with like 4 pages of notes. I sent you like a short bullet list.
Were you terrified, Doug?
And then, well, I was like,
okay.
I'm glad you prepared so much. Like I could ask you anything. We have your history, your transcript here. I see you got good grades in school.
I had professor parents, Doug. I do all the homework.
So you did all the homework, and when we first met, you weren't in the course yet.
No, I haven't committed to doing any of it.
But somehow you had watched a ton of videos, read a lot of stuff. So you kind of had like you somehow put together a blueprint. Tell me about that. Just what happened?
Well, I mean, it's kind of the same thing as when I do outreach, where I felt like, oh, like there's an actual expert who lives in my town. Like, what are the chances of that? So I don't want to waste his time asking him a whole bunch of questions that I could have already figured out the answers to by myself. So that's just always something I try not to do, right? Everyone's time is valuable. So if I could readily find the answer, I should have done that already. It's kind of how I see it. And so I want to show up with like valuable questions. Right. And if I can't put in 10 minutes of Googling first, it's probably not the right question. So, but for me, like before I reached out to you, I had already been kind of noodling this and listening to Michelle's podcast and doing all of that and was trying to figure out like, okay, I feel like I know what niche I would want generally, not how I'd want to structure it exactly, but just based on what I like to do, like that would be really fun. But then I wanted to make just kind of a list of, hey, if I'm talking about doing something long term, like, is there enough to write about? I don't know. Like, you just kind of want to scope it out beforehand. So that's where I got a little carried away. And I just started keeping like notes on my phone, right? Where I would just write down like topic after topic after topic that I could blog about. And then it got to be like 600 things, I think, by the time I met you, which is a bit much.
I thought so.
Yeah, it was a lot. So, but it just kind of justified to me like, yeah, you could do this for a long time. Like there's plenty to talk about. But what I didn't know and what I started asking you that day was like, how do you get from a list of 600 just general topics that aren't based on anything? You know, they're not based on any like Google data. How do you narrow that down? So that's why I really liked talking to you because I had just like heard of KGR. But I didn't know what it was. So like if you want to talk about that a little bit, like that was pretty transformative for me.
So it's the keyword golden ratio for the people that haven't heard. And I think by the time this episode is going to come out, I will have published like 2 episodes on the topic. If you're unfamiliar though, if this is your first episode,
go to Doug's YouTube.
Yeah. It's on, if you just Google keyword golden ratio, you should find like mostly my stuff. Basically, it's a data-driven way to find keywords that are generally underserved. So
And what do you mean by underserved? That was new to me as well.
And loose definition, I guess. But basically, there are more people searching for it each month than there are like pages on the internet covering the topic. Just in general. And if it's hard to explain that there's an advanced Google search. So it's all in title, whatever the search phrase is.
That was new to me too.
And then you divide that by the search volume.
Yep.
So you're looking for something under 0.25 and the search volume should be under 250. And it just kind of, people challenge me on the formula often. Just stick to the formula.
It's not a science.
Yeah.
It's a guideline.
And it works pretty well, right? So I've been using it for a couple years. A lot of other people use it. It works well at scale. So I would say at least 20 articles. And then you're going to have some success. If you just do 2, you may or may not see it work. And I hear from people and they're like, well, I published 3 articles and it's been, 6.5 hours. Like, why isn't this working? Anyway, the KGR was a good way to help prioritize it. And you did it the right way. Because
that was where I was stuck.
Right. Because you had the list of ideas.
Yeah.
You were sort of newer to keyword research. So you
I'd
did
never
it the
done
right
any.
way. Perfect. And you weren't like some people they know too much already, right? So they can't come up with ideas, but you were just like brainstorming. So you came up with a bunch of ideas and then I was like, well, what did I say? I have no idea.
Well, I mean, I was just like, what do I do now? Right? Like I have all this stuff, which makes it seem like this would be a really good niche. But if I hadn't had like Coffee with You and the course and like KGR, I would have just written a ton of articles that like that would never rank.
Right.
Like they just didn't have a chance of ranking. And I wouldn't have known the difference. So for me, I was like, okay, I got to get these 600 ideas down to like something that is reasonable. For me, it was about 100. Like that's kind of what I have on my hit list. But I have like a giant spreadsheet, right? Where I have all those 600 still for the future. And then I have like a KGR tab because you gave us a template.
Right.
I was like, great. Template, something to get me from 600 to 100. So like that was huge for me early on because I'd never done any keyword research. And I was just like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know which one of these to focus on. So that was a big deal for me.
Cool. And there is a school of thought to not worry about this keyword research, not worry about the search volume, and simply, do what you would have done, which would be like publish it, like work on it. And the problem is you may end up working on it for like a year, 18 months. And you're like, is this working? And you try to explain what you're doing to other people. And they're like, well, how much money have you made so far?
Like, $20.
Yeah. And you're like, well, I've, put in, 2,000 hours and thousands of dollars. So anyway, it's a good way to prioritize so you can get some traction early, a little traffic and,
Well, and it's just a good gut check, I feel like, before you start writing something. Because I can write on a lot of those topics still, but it's like the way that I write about them or the piece of that topic that I write about might be different because, a long tail keyword might be underserved and now I can see that. So it's not that I can't write about what I brainstormed about. I can just write about it a little bit smarter. Right.
Very good. So you have about a list of 100 that you're going through and generally prioritize by keyword golden ratio, maybe search volume. And, there's a lot of them that are just about equal, right?
Right.
So what do you do?
Well, it's like there's a lot of things where like I had asked you early on too, like should you go after KGRs with search volume of 0, right? Like you get that question 100 million times. Yeah. And I think I apologized when I asked it because I was like, I know you get this all the time, but like I don't understand why you would still do that. Which now I understand. So I don't know if you want to mention that, but like prioritizing a bunch of keywords with search volume 0, like you obviously don't have data to prioritize. So it's kind of like, what do you feel like writing about today? Yep. We'll do that.
Yep. So in like to
Georgie, get that bird. Get him.
It's funny, she'll see him on the rooftops too. She's nuts.
She's not missing any of those. Get him.
Yeah, Georgie, get her.
Get him. Good job.
So the reason why you would go after a search volume of 0, for the people that haven't heard me answer this yet.
Or if it's a Google suggest, I guess is.
Yeah. And that's typically, I was going to say, if it's a Google auto suggest, if it is a related search, or there are some that are just like, it's a good topic because you're in deep and you understand.
And you may have searched for it.
Yes. So go for those. Now, what you don't want to do is have like all your keywords be that. But if it's like, 10% is probably fine.
Right.
Now, good example. I, after doing a bunch of YouTube live streams and getting the same questions over and over again, I was like, well, I need to do a frequently asked questions section, which literally have almost all of them have 0 search volume, but they are searched for often by the exact people that asked. I need. Yeah.
Right.
So if you like think of a question like, should I go for a search volume of 0? Probably a video of mine will show up and a frequently asked questions section on my blog.
Yeah.
So like it's all like people search for it, just not many.
And I read them and I was still like, I'm search stupid. Like I don't get it. But like now I get it. Right now I know what Google Auto Suggest is. I didn't even, like you just need to put in a little bit of time to figure out what all the pieces are and what the terms are. And yeah. But that was a big deal for me because I was like, how do you prioritize a bunch of zeros? And it's kind of like, just do them as you can get to them.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yep. And at some point, like you don't have any more data. And the bad thing is like, you won't know what would have happened if you picked the other thing.
Right.
But the good part is you don't know. So all you can do is like keep pushing forward.
Yep.
And just keep moving forward. As long as you're moving forward, it's better than not. So,
Yeah, but that was huge for me to get from a massive unmanageable list to a slightly more manageable list.
Yeah, 100 you could work with. You're part of the way there. So you're good to go. All right, we're going to start wrapping up here. But I hope you'll come back, Christy, sometime to talk. I think we can dig deeper into some areas. Now, before we finish up, you asked about that first day. You were like, should I do this niche? Like what, like, how can you pick? Like, I know, so there's some criteria. So do you want to sort of tell us about some other things you were thinking about before you picked? And then I don't know, we could just talk through like choosing a niche because it's really hard, right?
I think that was probably the thing that I struggled with most because I knew from kind of day one what I wanted to do. But then I was trying to justify using all the tools and guidelines that like you and literally everyone else was like, well, here's how I pick and here's how I pick. And this person's like, just pick in 5 minutes. I'm like, wait. Is there not a right way to do this? Like, how do I get A's if I can't?
Right.
Like, there's no formula. What are you talking about?
It's pass fail. So.
It's pass fail. Oh, the worst. So I like really struggle with that. Like I probably lost a good month just like debating because it felt like you shouldn't invest all of this time and effort in something if it's not the quote unquote right niche. So for me, I was like, Doug, what if it doesn't fit every formula? Like, can I still pick it? And I think I wrote you, which is basically a note to myself, but addressed to you, where I was like, here's all the reasons I still want to pick it. Like, is that okay? Because I'm so exhausted and I haven't even started. And you were like, yes, it's fine. Like, if you're passionate about it and you feel like there's an audience there and like, yeah, it may be a little harder, or it may take longer, I think is what you'd even said. Which I was like, that's fine. Like, I'm in it for a long time. So that's okay.
And I think it's important to know because some people come at it from different angles, right? So some people basically are in a hurry. They're like, how can I make money as fast as possible?
Which I totally get.
Yeah. And I mean, like that should be like kind of it's always in the back of your head because most people don't want to waste time. Right. So it comes down to that. You don't want to waste time. And I was thinking about this for myself over the last couple weeks where if you think about like 3 months or 6 months or 12 months, you may make a certain decision. And if you're thinking about 2 or 5 years or something like that, well, then that shifts everything. We're in a hurry to publish the content really quick, right? 30 articles, which is pretty significant at the length that you're talking about, the quality that you have on your site in this short amount of time. But then if you think back, and I'm kind of all over the place with this, but there are some blogs that you may find that maybe they started in like 2015. Right. Maybe they published something like once a month and it wasn't that great. And then they started getting a little more traction. Now they're publishing more often. Now they have a podcast. Like things grow like slowly, organically. And I see a lot of topics and niches and maybe interests where like if you put in the time over a long period and you're setting all these like roots, that's the wrong analogy. If you're
Yeah,
you're
like
making
building the
contacts,
foundation of it so that it can
Yeah.
be something that you still want.
and you're making contacts on the YouTube side, on Instagram, in these like growth areas, it's like those are awesome contacts. And your
Right.
site, I mean, again, your site was basically nothing when you were contacting those people. Very young, not much.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe
some
like
content.
10 articles.
Right. And like you totally can reach out, you can do all that stuff. And again, I was like, well,
Yeah.
there's obviously a market for it. It's a good, you see the people that have been doing it for a while. So it was like, yeah, it's going to take you longer, probably. Some of the,
Because it is more of an authority thing like that. It just takes longer.
right.
Just does.
So for the people that, and again, this is not everyone, but for the people who are like, I have an interest, I am in it for the long haul, I'm not in a huge hurry, I have another job, I want to do this on the side. You have to be patient, which is super hard to do.
So hard. Yeah. You're just not going to see progress for a little while. Right. But there's other kinds of progress. But it's just like you can't go and compare yourself to a site from 2014. You just can't do it.
And then there's like, you have to do some things to make a couple small mistakes and figure it out. And then you'll be able to do better the next time. So it's definitely like an iterative process. And, here's another good example is iterative. But like you've published some content, you're going to be adding more, but you can and should go back to that early content. So it doesn't have to be perfect the first time. It just needs to be good enough.
What?
And then you can come back to it.
False, Doug. False.
Everyone's like threshold of perfect is different. Yeah. At some point,
it's a burden.
Yeah, it's rough, especially. I mean, as a writer, and
I know, it's the worst.
It's tough. Okay, so
but it's true. Like, I think one of the things that one of the reasons I liked kind of your approach was that you were like, you have to spend time on the right things. Like, you can't just get lost in these tunnels of stuff that, like, sort of matters, but not really. Like, you just have to go write the content. And that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
So,
and it's one of those where, I don't know, there was like my last boss. I remember one of the later meetings that I was in, I don't know, there was like, there were about 10 projects that were like super important. And she's like, well, we really got to take care of this. And we went through everything and I was like, okay, which is my priority? 10
out of 10
priorities. Yeah, she was like, well, they're all priorities. And then I was like, fuck, like, this is useless. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, then I knew
it doesn't
that
make any sense.
I could just do whatever I wanted, right? Because so I could say, well, I was so busy on the other 9, that's why this one, and then
and one of the things,
worthless.
I don't know, the only way that I can sort of get past the perfectionism is to schedule out like other things that I want to do. So if I have all those other things and I'm like, oh, like that really bothers me about the site, or like I really want to try this, I know that I shouldn't be doing it right now, right? Like I know that, but I have to like schedule it for February or schedule it for March, or like know that I'll come back to it to be able to kind of like let it go for now.
Yeah.
So like if you have all these great ideas, like write them down, because you're going to come back to it when you have time. Like just get them on paper so that you don't forget them. It's just, you might not need to do them right now.
Yep. And that's perfect. Yeah. So you can do everything, but you just can't do it all right. Or you can't do it all at once.
Yeah.
And maybe you can't do it well, but 80% is usually pretty good.
Right.
So, all right, cool. Any parting thoughts before we finish up here?
No, I mean, I think, I'm just going to kind of keep playing around with the outreach stuff and see what works and what feels, authentic for the site. And, the next thing I'm going to do is figure out, do I need help with more content? So that's the next thing I'm just kind of wrestling with. So We'll see.
And I think you're not quite at the 6-month mark. And a lot of times you'll get a little bit more organic traffic at that point.
Yeah.
So it'll be super interesting to see if you get like, it's not going to be like, 10 times more traffic, but it's like real gradual, an increase in growth after that 6-month period.
Yeah. Well, and I can already tell like the oldest articles have the most traffic, so like maybe 1,300 or something out of my visitors a month was for one article. And it was the first one I ever wrote.
Okay.
So
very good.
I imagine that'll keep happening.
All right. Well, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll chat again soon. If you people have specific questions that you want us to go over, maybe
we'll chat about it next time.
Yeah, we can do it. So just shoot an email to feedback@doug.show.
Cool. Thanks, Doug.
And thanks again to Christy. Don't forget to leave comments if you're interested in hearing more. And if you're new to the channel, have a look at some of the other videos if you like what you see, especially those other success stories. But if you like what you see, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. I do live streams from time to time and generally publish videos. So we'll catch you on the next episode.